Bye, guys.
Well, where are you going?
Oh, I was going to go back inside and continue.
How are the dogs?
I don't know. I haven't been downstairs in a while.
Oh, awesome. I'm sure they're. I hope they're still all here. You did?
Yeah.
Well, you didn't go check?
No, they were barking at me.
Oh, okay. Okay. Let me know when you're ready, Halston. This is a good one. They made fun of me forever because I always say, this is a good one. The whole trip in Montana, they kept saying, this is a good one.
I sleep one night and I played, this is a good one.
Well, it's either that or people go, hey guys.
I know. It's like, hey guys, how are you today?
So then what should I start it with, Isla?
Good morning.
This one sucks. I'm just kidding. Is that how I should start? Right? That would be.
This one's awful.
So my daughter recommends I start this episode with, this one sucks. I mean, not really. This one's amazing. What do you think? Why don't you do my intro, Isla?
Oh.
You sit down and I talk to Lacey and we talk about working out and we talk about. This is a good one. And go, this is a good. This is odd.
No, don't do it. Do it.
No.
Do it.
Okay. No, I don't want to do it.
It doesn't mean we're gonna release it.
Okay.
Just pretend to be me.
Halston, are you rolling?
Yes.
Okay. No, I don't want to do this. Hey guys, this is Leanne. Today's was really interesting. It's really interesting. We talked about a lot of things, mostly working out, you know, the daily grind. Mom, stop.
That was so good. That was so good.
Okay, that was kind of adorable. I mean, should we put that in there? I think maybe we should a little bit. That was pretty cute.
So good.
It was pretty cute. Okay. Hey guys. Now I can never start. I now know how to. This one's amazing. On today's episode of Wife of the Party. Now Isla's totally gotten in my head. Okay.
100%.
So my guest is Lacey, who is a new friend of mine and of our whole family's, actually. She is came to us as Bert's trainer to get him prepared for the movie, but we just kind of kept her as our friend. So I think we had a great conversation about so many things. She's such an interesting and dynamic person. She has some really unique life experiences. She has a job like almost no one else on the planet has. She's a personal trainer, but very specific in that she works on really big action movies and gets the actors prepared for the stunts that they do for themselves on these films. So it's a really specific type of training. She also owns a coffee company called Caveman Coffee. There is a code you can put in if you want to buy some Caveman Coffee. It's really good coffee. You just go to cavemancoffee.com and the code is Wife of the Party. And I think it's 25% off. Is that right? 25% off anything you buy. So it should be good. And I actually love her travel mugs. They're awesome because they fit in your cup holder in your car. And it's perfect for one big cup of coffee, but not too big. But anyway, we had conversations about relationships, about friendships, about the pandemic, about all of her businesses that she has, which are many, about her future plans, about, I don't know, life. We just talked like friends talk. So I hope you enjoy this episode and enjoyed my substitute host, Isla Kreischer, introducing her at some point. But Lacey has literally changed the landscape of our family and so much for the better. And I'm so grateful. So I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoy her as a person. Thanks for coming back every week. Thanks for all your emails. I read all of them. I don't get to answer all of them, but I do read them all and I appreciate every single one. So thank you very much. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this episode with Lacey. How does it feel to be like Kesha in my house? Because
Kesha
you
in
are
your
Kesha
house?
in my. How does it feel?
I was like, does that mean that I should wear like a cool face mask thing?
You could. I'm not sure how you could improve your ratings in my house, but you could try.
That is the best compliment ever. I mean, it feels pretty great to walk in here all the time. It feels great. Everyone's happy. Everyone's stoked to do stuff. And that's nice.
You literally are
So it's close to
you literally, I was walking in the yard and I was like, you literally are like Kesha at my house.
I love
the
that.
coolest thing ever.
It's pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty nice. This has been, I mean, just this time, I was thinking about it in the car on the way over here, coming out of COVID, coming back to LA, and then being in this house. It's just like this like family of love that's like, let's work out, let's do all this stuff. And everyone's motivated, everyone's excited. And so it's just felt like this big hug coming in.
Oh, that's
Always.
a nice thing to say.
It's true.
Well,
It's true.
obviously you did it because you could have shown up
You
and we
guys
could have
set the
been
stage
like,
though,
ugh.
too.
But
Yeah. You have to gel with people.
that's true.
I feel like we get along pretty well. You and I have a lot in common too.
We
I
do.
feel
We
like
have a lot
we're
in
similar
common.
souls.
We do, which is
Yeah.
fascinating since I am not Kesha in my house.
I get to be like the cool aunt that comes
do.
in. That's like
You do. So funny story. So we're at Birds performing in Red Rocks in September.
Yeah.
And the girls are going to meet us there because Georgia wants to look at some colleges in Colorado. So
Cool.
we're like, perfect. His show's on Wednesday night. We're going to see Jimmy Buffett the next night at Red Rocks.
Yep.
And then you come in Thursday night, and Friday we'll go see 2 colleges.
Yep.
Saturday we'll see a 3rd. Come home Sundays. Perfect.
That's awesome.
I was like, so someone's got to stay with you because I don't want them to stay with us because our house is construction site.
Yeah.
And they both went, can Lacey stay
Oh
with
my
us?
God,
And I was
that's
like,
amazing.
well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But they
We end up
immediately,
doing like
in unison,
Oh, that
can
makes
Lacey
me so
stay with
happy. That makes me so happy. I would be happy to stay.
Well, I
We
mean,
can
I
have a
was like,
sleepover.
she might want to go to the show.
We can
I don't know.
Have a fitness sleepover. Yeah, I mean that sounds amazing. Actually, so sure.
It was so funny because it's always like, can Zay stay, which is their aunt.
Yeah.
I mean, immediately. And I
That's
was
amazing.
like, okay.
Okay, you guys can adopt me. It's
We've crossed over we've crossed over a threshold here, which I'm happy to have crossed over. I hope you are
I
happy.
am so
about-
happy.
Okay,
You guys can adopt me. That's totally cool.
We're happy to have you.
And,
You can be my sister since I don't have one.
I'll be Leanne's sister, the cool Aunt Lacey. How about that?
I love it.
I love it. Yeah, and we can like country out when nobody gets what we're talking about.
I'm watching Yellowstone last night, and we have this like sectional couch, and behind us is the kitchen. I'm watching the TV, and it's such a good show, right? I started again, season 1.
Yeah.
all from the beginning, and
Yeah.
then like,
I've done that 3 times.
have you not at 3 times?
It's usually, I mean, recently just because one of my other friends starts it, I'm like, I'll watch it with you.
I know,
Let's
right?
do it. Yeah.
My dad's coming, and I'm going to start it over again.
Yep.
But I'm in like season 2, episode 4, right?
Yep.
So all of a sudden, I hear Isla behind me going, "Hey, he's pretty good looking." I'm like, "Isn't he? That's Rip. That's who I've been talking about. He's awesome." She's like, "Wow, that girl's mean." She's talking about Beth.
Yeah,
I'm like, "Yeah,
Beth.
she's pretty hardcore."
Yeah.
I turn around and she's laying face down on the island with her head turned toward the TV, just watching the show.
Obsessed.
I was like, why don't you just come sit with me and watch the show? She's like, I'm not really into the show. I'm like, oh my
Sure
God.
you're not.
You totally are.
I kind of wonder what it would have been like to be their age and have characters like that to watch, like a Beth Dutton to watch. Because I feel like we didn't really have those characters growing up.
No. I mean, we did. I had Dallas. I'm a lot older than
Sure.
you. But
like a strong, I mean, that character is obviously so complex and like pretty messed up, but she's also just like so strong and like tough as nails.
yes. Well, there were 2 women on Dallas,
Yeah.
Sue Ellen
Yeah.
Ewing and Pamela Ewing.
Yep.
And they were very different types of victims.
Yep.
And they had very different types of strengths. But they were both kind of victims
Right.
of JR, of the
Right.
family. And
Right.
it is, you're right. That's a very different woman,
Yeah.
Beth Dutton.
Yeah. And I mean, she's a victim in a bunch of horrible things that you learn later on, but she is the leader as well. You know, they all
She
kind of
is.
become the leader at different points, but
No, but she
Yeah.
is definitely the heir apparent, so to speak,
Yeah.
because she's the one, she's like her daddy.
yeah.
She's super.
Yeah. She became her dad.
Yeah, she became her dad.
100%. As we
Yeah.
all do, kind of.
Yeah, sort of. Thank God I became my dad.
That's what there's a line in Friends, I think, that they say like, "Oh, I was trying so hard not to become my mom. I became my dad." And I always say that to my dad.
I think that's hysterical.
It's really good.
I'm not really my dad. I think I'm just like a walking anomaly. I think I'm my mom's personality.
Yeah.
But my mom's super gregarious, really fun, always has a smile on her face. But underneath is the other stuff. I don't have the underneath other stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway.
You've done some work though.
A little bit.
Yeah. You're self-aware.
A little bit. I've done a little bit of work. So how did you become a trainer?
So funny thing, kind of by mistake, or at least what I do by mistake, but I was always an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
I growing up, my dad, and just in my family on my dad's side, it wasn't really acceptable to be anything but an athlete. It was like, how many sports are you going to play? Like, which position are you going to be? And like, how hard are you going to practice? And how many state championships can you win?
Oh my God.
They're from a small town where, division, like 4A, which or 1A, which is like, 300 people in the whole county. So every school that's all they have is sports and then like farm life, and they all go to state and they all have these stories. So, and I grew up in a slightly bigger town, so it was more competitive. I was in like the 4A division, but from a very young age, that was instilled in me. And I went to those games and was excited and saw those girls and wanted to be basketball player, volleyball player, track and field, whatever I could do. I ended up doing volleyball up through Junior Olympics, which is pretty high level, like right before college. And then you can decide to go to like smaller 2A school to play, or, go to a 4A college and not play, which is what I ultimately decided. But I played at that level. And then I did AAU up to AAU basketball. And then my senior year decided to just do volleyball and quit basketball and did Thai boxing and drillettes as well, which was like a like weird left field, like I'm going to control my life thing, but it was super fun.
Wait. Drill boxing?
No, drillettes, which is like dance team.
Drillettes. Okay.
I did dance team my senior year instead of basketball, and then I did Thai boxing.
Okay.
So very strange choice, but I just remember being like, I'm over it. I'm over team sports. So I did those things and then went to college and kind of fell off and said, well, there's no athletics after this if you don't play team sports in college. And I really missed that. And played some athletic stuff like intramurals type things as an adult right out of school. I moved to New York City. I started working in production, and then really missed coaching. And so I got asked at one point to help with Junior Olympic volleyball. So I went back and coached the younger high school girls and some of the even younger like junior high girls. And that was really fun because I came up with strength and conditioning programs and things like that and exposed them to stuff that I had been exposed to as an athlete and got to give back a little bit. And then decided that I would coach and train on the side. So at some point I was going for my yoga certification and I was running marathons and doing stuff like that. And then I found this thing called CrossFit and it was like, hook, line, and sinker. What is this? I can't do it. I was floored. I couldn't even Tate actually introduced me to it, and I couldn't drive my car home after I did the first workout.
Oh my God.
I was sitting in my car like hoping they wouldn't come out of the gym and see me because I couldn't use my arms. And I was like, what is this? I need to do more of it. So I got really into CrossFit and got certified as a coach in that just for like a side fun thing while I was doing production work. And moved to Los Angeles in 2009 because it was a more fitness community situation as opposed to New York, which was non-fitness and mostly like Mad Men style, people drinking all the time and stuff like that. So I wanted to get out of that race and into like a slightly healthier world. So I came here and I wanted to compete in CrossFit, and I did. There were a lot of gyms here. And I was working in production as well as my day job, and that was kind of my like moonlighting situation. And then at one point those worlds came together while I was competing on my way to the CrossFit Games with a team. I was going to a chiropractic office and getting work done because we were destroying ourselves. And they said, wait, you do production? We might have a job for you. And I ended up finishing up award show season here in Los Angeles and then interviewing for this road action job, like trainer job that I was in my head, I was going to do for like 60 days. And essentially found myself on the set of a huge action movie, figuring out how to train the actors and actresses that were going to do their stunts or some of their own stunts for whatever those stunts were. So I go speak and watch stunt rehearsal, talk to the stunt team. They'd say, hey, we want them to be able to do this, this, and this. They'd show us with a stunt person. And then I would figure out what's the training program. We have 3 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever the timeline is. Here's what we're going to do to get ready for it. And that was how I got into this business as a like professional trainer. And that's when things changed for me from being in production full-time to being a trainer full-time.
Crazy.
And yeah, it was just right place, right time. Weird circumstance of saying yes to things that I thought there was no way this will ever be a full-time career for me. This will just be like a temporary thing in between shows.
Right.
And it'll be fun. And I'll get to travel.
And here you are.
And this is like 10 years later. And I've worked on some of the biggest action movies in the world. And I had even stepped out of it a little bit the last couple years to focus on my coffee company and then a event production company. And of course, COVID hit and knocked everyone down. And I've been sitting around. And one thing that is happening during COVID is movies. And I got a call from our friend Tom and said, hey, you still want to do this? And I said, yeah, what's going on? And I came back to prep a show for 12 weeks and I've been working for 8 months now. So
has it been 8 months?
Back in the game.
Back in the game.
Yeah. And I think it was only a month in that I met you guys.
I think you're probably right.
I was just setting that show up and Tom called again and said, hey, do you want to come out and like meet? I think you know who Bert Kreischer is, right? And we had talked about Bert on another show on Jurassic in London we were on together. And he said, I think you know my friend Bert. And I said, well, I know him from the Comedy Store, kind of, but Tate knows him for sure from that world. And he said, oh, he's one of my best friends. And I think they were doing Sober October. And I might have bet against Bert that he wasn't going to win that one.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So then he said, hey, could you come out today? I remember I was at like Bed Bath & Beyond. And I was like, probably be there in like 2 hours. And he was like, okay, great. And you guys were just setting up this gym here.
We sure were.
Yep.
And you and Tate came out and it was magic.
Yep. Measured. Here we are.
Yep. And here we are. So Lacey built our gym. Right?
Helped.
Anyways,
well,
you pretty much
we built it. Yeah.
Well, with a little injury.
We all built it. Oh yeah, the first day. Let's tell that story.
So I barely knew you, and I get a call going.
I'd met you guys one time, I think, maybe.
I think it was
like going to be the first time that we all worked out together.
I think so. Yeah. And you were putting together
the weight rack, and I thought I'll get there early and I'll like organize things. I'll put the weight rack together so that when everyone shows up, it'll be organized.
Right.
Instead of like the original plan was just like, we'll all show up and we'll organize it. But I thought I'll just get there early and do it.
Right.
And that was stupid because it was the weight rack is definitely a 2-man job. It says 2 people hold. It's got the little stick guys holding the thing.
Yeah.
And I was holding it with one leg and trying to hold this side. And then it started to fall and it fell right on my head and cut my head right open. And I just remember, you know, when you get hurt and you just touch it, like your hand goes to it. And I was like, are you okay? Did I knock my tooth out? Because I hit the head went forward. And I walked into your brand new tiled bathroom and then I looked down and just like blood is dropping all over this new tile. And I went, oh no, first impression. And then I was like, am I going to call and tell them or can I like hide this somehow? Like I was just like,
kidding?
Can I just like bandage this up really quick? And then it wouldn't stop bleeding. So I was like, I better call somebody because I might pass out in here.
No, I can't believe you even hesitated to call.
Well, you know, if it's like a little injury, you just like get through it, whatever. Put some dirt on it.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, you do.
Since I don't put things together with like both feet and one hand and like a shelf I'm leaning
100%.
against something.
I've seen you out there doing it with
I know, right? I can do it myself. I can do it myself.
I don't need help. I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
No help. I got a speech. I just talked about this on my podcast this morning. I got a speech yesterday from my main worker here, Paul, about that particular personality trait.
Why?
Because
you didn't ask them for help? Or?
I don't stop moving ever. And I'm absolutely positive that I could probably pick this entire house and move it 2 blocks over completely by myself.
100%.
And I'm like working. There's a big pile of cardboard boxes and our dumpster showed up. And I'm like, perfect. Got my knife, got my sun hat. I'm going to start breaking these boxes down, put them in the dumpster. And Paolo goes, no, let the other guy do that. And I went, no, but he's like jackhammering. I can't really jackhammer, but I can break down boxes. Right. And he goes, you have to let someone help you. You're working all day. Why don't you just let someone help you? I mean, I've known him for years. Yeah. He remodeled our other house. Yeah. He's like all the boys I grew up with, except he's Mexican and he's That's the literal only difference is their ethnicity.
Right.
Everything else is exactly the same.
Yeah.
And we have a good working relationship, good sense of humor, and he's never talked to me seriously like that before. And literally,
Sometimes you need to hear it from other people that aren't as close to you. If it's that obvious to somebody that's an actual like construction person.
yeah, he gave me a big old speech. He was like, "You're working before I get here. You're working when I leave. I
Because
know that
you're
you
right.
work Saturday, Sunday."
Because your brain can't stop until it's done either. Like you just
That's right.
Yeah.
I have something called it's called something.
Being a mom.
No, close. It's called intentional vigilance, I think it's called.
Okay.
Where you're right. I can't stop until it's finished.
Yeah.
I need it to be finished.
Yeah.
And I'm months away from being finished in this
Totally.
house. So I can't relax.
Yeah.
But I literally, it made me pause. When
Right.
Powell said that, I was like, wow, I am massively not taking care of myself.
100%.
Like massively.
100%.
But I have a feeling you might be similar.
I'm very similar. Yeah, I understand that exactly the way, which is why I showed up early to put the gym together before you guys got here.
And busted your head open and went, should
it.
I call?
I called my other friend first. I called Antonia and I was like, I need you to, I was on FaceTime with her. I was like, can you see this? And she was like, Jesus, go to the hospital. And I was like, it's COVID. I can't go to the hospital.
Right.
All these people are coming over here. And she was like, just call whoever's close to you. And
Yeah.
so I called you.
You called me. I called
you.
Tom, who's closer.
Who came
than
over
I
here
am.
in literally 35 seconds
Yeah.
and was like,
Do-do-do-do.
I need tobacco. Somebody bring me tobacco to close this up. And I was like, who are you? I know him as like the producer on set in the like nice shoes. And he rolled in and like put on the plastic gloves and like fixed my head.
He did.
And then we put that buff on my head, I think. And then we
Yeah.
continued the workout. Yeah.
And we just went on with our day.
Yeah. And it was fine.
Totally.
It was 100% fine.
It was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Tom is one of my favorite human beings on the planet.
He's so amazing.
He really is.
Yep.
I jokingly say he's my brother from another mother. We are
Yep.
so similar in so many ways. And I just really value the heck out of that guy.
I wish that you guys could see. I mean, you can see it in like the movies that he makes, but like I wish you could see him in his like greatest element. Not that like, you know, probably his family is the greatest element, but that like at work when he's pulling off the biggest stunt of all time or the biggest thing of all time and just totally in his zone making it happen.
Well, when he explains it to us, you can kind of see it.
Yeah.
Like you kind of feel like
He knows
there.
every detail in and out. He knows every single person that's on set. He knows every single person's name. Like there's 1,000 people on our set right now. And he knows, I'm like the one guy that's the camera guy that looks, I'm not on set as much. So I don't see. And he's like, oh, you mean this person, this person, this person, you know, and he knows everything.
That's not true in personal life. He makes up nicknames for everybody because he can't remember their real name. And the nicknames are sometimes really bad. Where you're like, you know, vagina mouth. And you're like, don't call someone vagina mouth. I mean, he's never used that. But it's
Totally.
like that
Totally.
where you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Don't ever say that
There's
in
the
front of
other side.
anybody else.
There's the other side. Well, there's probably a reason he keeps to himself a lot.
It may be. I don't know about that. But yeah, maybe. I think he definitely selects. He's very selective about who he lets in his
and
life.
he's got like a secret. Like I think most people are pretty terrified of him, and that's what his job is to be terrifying a little bit. But only a few people know his like funny side too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
And sometimes that comes out, which is amazing.
Well, I'm super grateful for him, to him.
Me too.
For hooking our whole family up with you because.
Me too.
So I haven't really introduced you. I will in my intro, but I swear you have totally changed my children's lives.
Oh, that makes me so.
Not joking.
There is no greater feeling than when you say that, and also like watching them come out of their shells
Because
and
you
get
can see
excited.
that it's true.
Absolutely.
You can see that it's true.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing about coaching, or especially working with youth, is that you can see that with everyone, right? Like being a trainer in a way, or at least the way that I choose to do it, is sure, you're providing a program and helping people achieve something and change their lives, but you're also holding space. And it's like you have to figure out how to hold space for each person. And watching that in a younger, you can watch that in adults, it's also amazing, but like watching it in especially young girls is like, there's nothing greater.
I think you're probably right. The biggest change I've seen is with Isla.
Me too.
Georgia was already pretty confident, already pretty strong.
And she should be, because she could be an athlete in any way that she wants to be. There's not a lot of people with perfect muscle recruitment patterns like she has. And man,
Yeah,
she can do it. She's a lot like, I mean, both parents, you guys both do that. But it's just like if she puts her mind to something, she will be an all-star in that sport. Yeah. And then Isla, like just her movement alone from day one to like last week with her barbell doing deadlifts, I was just like,
her posture has totally changed.
Her posture, the way that her brain connects with the rest of her body, and like, you know, that's often the hardest thing for some people, and at any age, is connecting your mind and really coming into the rest of your body, and having that image of what you're seeing someone else do reflect what your body does. And some people have like visual, like Georgia can just watch it and she knows it. Some people have tactile cues. They need to feel it. Sandy needs the tactile cue, right? Like you can't just tell her. And some people need verbal. Some people need all three. And seeing the difference in Isla's being able to like watch a move and just do it is pretty awesome.
Well, let me tell you what happens in my house that's different, that I think is directly related.
Okay.
She's dressing differently.
That's amazing.
She's showing her legs.
Yep.
She's dancing a lot.
Oh.
And dancing like, look at my booty.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the way she was.
She's feeling good about her body.
When she was younger.
Right.
Before she had any kind of body image awareness even. Yeah. When she was little, she was naked 90% of her day until she was about 4. She had no modesty. And not that she needs to be like naked, but she's definitely became very modest.
Sure.
And I didn't think it was authentic to who she was.
Sure.
You know, if she had always been a modest kid, I wouldn't have thought anything about it.
Right.
But she was always very free. And in middle school, maybe even in 4th grade, it started kind of shutting down.
Right.
And her body started changing in 4th grade.
Right.
So, and I would talk to her about it. I would try not talking to her about it. I would, you know, I just was hyper aware that this isn't in alignment with who I've known her to be and who I think she actually really is.
Right.
This is something else going on.
Yeah.
Well, I see her coming to life in a different way than I've seen in a very long time, where she's feeling confident and she's letting herself be funny and be goofy.
That's good.
And a lot freer, you know, like she's still not wearing bathing suits. She still wears like a rash guard and shorts.
Sure.
But there was a while, that girl, I couldn't get her out of the water.
Right.
Until she was probably about 4th grade.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I can't get her in it.
Right.
And once I get her in it, she has a good time.
Sure.
But the bridge between
letting go of that,
whatever is going on
thing is, I
don't really care. I mean, not that I don't care what it is. I have no judgment on what it is.
Sure.
I care that it's happening and it's limiting her.
And she might not even know what that is either. So
I don't think she does.
You know, we all go through some experiences externally, especially in school, that affect us that we don't realize till much later on.
I think it's
that
probably
one kid
right.
said this one thing to me one time and it got in my head. You know?
Yep. And I think that's probably what happened. I don't think she thinks anything's going on.
Right.
But it was apparent from her posture.
Sure.
You know, your body language says so much about how you feel.
Sure.
And her posture is totally different.
Sure.
She's dressing totally different. I mean, I took a picture for her first day of school yesterday and I was like, she is just adorable.
She was radiating too. That picture is so cute.
Isn't it cute?
So cute. Yeah. And you can see that in her confidence when she walks in to do a lift or something like that. It used to be very silly, right? Like I'll kind of make it silly so I don't have to fully do it. Now she's like lifting real weight and getting serious about it. And that is, if you can step up to a barbell or you can step up to something and lift it and finish it or do a workout that you think is impossible and do it, you've now taught yourself that I can commit to doing something and I can do it and I can be happy and it can be fun. And of course there's endorphins and all these things that go along with it, but it's just like, that's a life lesson that you teach yourself every time you go into the gym to work out.
Right. Especially if it's something you don't think you can do.
Right.
I think the benefit of a trainer is, when I work out with you, I go, she doesn't know what she's talking about. There's no way I'm going to do it. I'm never going to be able to lift this weight. And then you go, you can do it. And then you have to trust that person and go, well, she probably knows my body better than I do. I definitely don't know what this movement is.
Sure.
For sure. And okay, I'm going to trust her.
The first time that I trained just you and me, because I think you had to do something. So I was like, let's just do the workout really quick.
Yeah.
You did the workout that destroyed everyone else. They were like crying,
right.
like doing the tire, all this stuff. You just chatted to me the whole time, did the same weight as everyone, did the same reps as everyone, weren't even phased. And I was like, okay. Could push Leanne a lot harder.
Did you go, this woman might be part mule?
This woman might be from the country for sure.
Might be.
You were like, I know this move. And
I've
you were
done
just
this a million
hammer
times.
slamming the tire. Yeah.
So what about, okay, so you grew up in New Mexico.
Yep. Santa Fe.
And in Santa Fe.
In Santa Fe most of the time. And then both sides of my family were pioneer people, homesteaders. So, and they both settled from various parts of the world in a place called Roy, New Mexico, which is a very small country town in just over the panhandle from Texas in the plains of New Mexico. And so both grandparents, great-grandparents, when I was growing up, lived there. And we would go back on the weekends, either to my dad's ranch or my great-grandma's farm and hang out in the country. And so I had a huge experience being either on the ranch or on the farm in a place with like outhouses. My great-grandma's house had just gotten running water, but they still had their outhouse and they still like boiled water for a bath and stuff when I was very young. And later on had like full plumbing, but yeah, different world.
Different world,
here in
isn't
Los
it?
Angeles.
Totally different. How do you think that is valuable to you now?
It's so valuable because, I mean, for one, knowing where food comes from, and understanding the work that goes in to bringing a hamburger or whatever you want to say to the table. You know, my dad's side of the family was a cattle ranching family. And so the level of work that goes into raising cows free range and bringing that meat to a place where people can consume it is extremely time-consuming, challenging, hard work, a labor of love, and working the land, growing vegetables and things like that as well. And so I think just not having easy resources, when you go to the ranch, it's like you got to think about how much water's in the well. Like if everyone has to shower, like everyone gets like 3 minutes of shower time or whatever. Those things are really important. I think we grow up especially in the city where we don't appreciate those things. Everything is too easy. Food comes easy. We can go in any gas station, anything, anywhere, and have an abundance of whatever we want. And if you're in a situation like that where you have to survive, then you think about things a little bit differently. And obviously I wasn't around during the pioneer times, but my great grandma's story, which was told again and again by these great programs in New Mexico where the kids would go in and interview their elders and talk about their story. So I got to read her story and have her tell it about, walking from Hell's, Texas with the milk cow at age 9, believing that her dad was taking her to this like oasis because you could get 5 acres of land if you homesteaded. And they ended up in the plains in New Mexico in a dugout in the side of the dirt right before the Dust Bowl.
Oh my God.
That's wild. And yeah, both my grandmothers had babies during the Dust Bowl and lived through it by themselves while the men went off to try to save the cattle. Cause obviously people didn't know what was going on. They didn't know it was the Dust Bowl or where it should go for it to end. So they would just say like, bye, I hope I see you again. And then drive off with the cattle in the direction of wherever they thought the wind wasn't blowing. And so for months, my great grandma was like by herself with her baby and another woman that also had a baby, I think. And they survived somehow. But like, that's crazy.
Yeah. That's crazy. How'd you get food?
That's insane. I have no idea how they did that. I mean, they had chickens, they had like some supplies, but you basically had to do it in the fog of dust all the time. Yeah. It's wild. So I think just like having that history and understanding the labor that goes into things, to having things, is something that is super important. And then also having this connection to nature and land and animals and stuff like that is really important to me, and is something that's come up for me a lot this last year when COVID happened and LA shut down and everything stopped. all the doing stopped. It's like, well, let's go back to basics. Like, where do you want to be? What do you want to, and I really wanted to be in nature. So I like put everything in storage and moved to a adobe cabin in the woods, which was a lot of nature.
You did?
I did. I was
didn't know
there.
that.
That's right before I came back. Yeah. So I put everything in storage here, went back to Santa Fe. My parents were fixing to sell the house that I grew up in and the house they'd been in for 27 years, which imagine moving that. It was an undertaking. So I opted to not move into that house while that was happening and got this like cool negotiated Airbnb. At the time, all the Airbnb people were like, however we can rent things out because no one was traveling. So I got a great deal on this cute little cabin in the woods that these two women own. And I basically lived there and operated my companies out of there and did Zoom calls with people or Zoom training with people out of there and was there for 5 months.
Wow.
Which was awesome. I helped my parents move. I was isolated, pitch black at night, super quiet, just coyotes outside. Never worried about locking your door, just worried about like the wild animals that might attack you between parking your car and getting in the front door.
Right.
Yeah. So that was really magical. And it was a great break from the city. And then a great, like there was a moment where I was like, I'll just stay here forever. And then there was a moment where I was like, okay, I got to get out of here.
Right. Okay. Kind of done.
Not
Recharge
old enough to just fully settle down here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Recharge full.
Yeah.
Let's
and
go.
that's when I got the Thomas Hayslip call and he was like, hey,
I got a project
you want to work on a movie? Yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
Tell me more. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's so cool that you did that.
Yeah, it was cool. And it was I got to go back to a lot of the elders have passed in my family. So it's basically my dad holding it together with our ranch, which is like a money pit, but it's, beautiful, huge, like expansive area of land in New Mexico with the house that my great-great-grandfather built by hand, rock house. And so we got to go back and like see that a little bit. And he's working on that. And it'll be an endless project to talk about.
Right. What's he going to do with it?
I mean, it's owned by the whole family. It's a corporation that everyone has shares in. And so the question is, what will we all agree on? And that has been the crux of the situation for since my great uncle passed, and he was kind of the last real like cowboy ranch hand out there, or rancher out there. We decided to, because of the drought that's happening in New Mexico, it used to be, an acre per cow. Now it's like, I think it's like 5.5 acres per cow that you need. And you have to rotate them because there's not enough water for grass to grow every year. So what we did was you have to also have like, I think 250 to 300 head of cattle to make a profit to break even. So calculate that times how many acres and figure out how much land you need for that.
Wow.
And so my great uncle dedicated his life to that and lived down there and would have a couple ranch hands and they would do it every year. And we'd all go down for branding and shipping season and help out. And then he just did that. When he passed, nobody wanted to do that full time. So we opted to sell all the cows to our neighbor and then lease land to him and another rancher in the area, which helped everybody in the community because there was a lot of land for them to then do their cows on. And so that's what we currently do. But yeah, it's a lot of land and it's a lot of upkeep. My dad's down there at least once a month, tending to windmills and things like that and figuring things out you would never think about.
Right.
Unless you were in that world.
Wouldn't really.
Every
think
time I
about
go back,
windmills.
he's got a list of things like, okay, all these things. And he gives me the download and I'm like, that's a lot
Gotta go
of
to work.
Yeah.
Gotta go.
There was a brief moment in time when I lived in New York City right before the 2008 crash. And I thought as I was leaving New York, I'm just going to go back and like live on the land and become a cowgirl. And I spent about a week and a half doing that. And I was like, oh my God, what am I doing by myself out there?
No.
Not ready. Not yet.
No, it's a relentless life.
Yeah. And it's about 4 hours from the nearest city or town, like
Wow.
grocery store. So
Wow.
my great uncle got crushed by his horse in a situation in the corral and then had to drive himself in his pickup without power steering with not an automatic pickup to the hospital 3.5 hours away.
Oh my God.
With his rib piercing through one of his lungs.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
So it's like if you're signing up for that kind of life, cool.
That's kind of intense.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really, really
It was a
intense.
rude awakening from New York City too.
Yeah,
At,
well,
like
yeah.
23.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
At 23, is
Yeah.
that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Not
You're
quite.
way too young for that. And, you know, farm life is so hard. You're up so early. You don't get a day off. I mean,
Yeah, it's
cows
constant.
got to eat every day.
Yep.
And shit's got to happen every day.
Every single day.
And I don't think people really understand that. I think you're right. I don't think people really understand anymore where food comes from and how hard it is just to make a meal out of a garden.
Right.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
And to have it sustain over a season.
Yeah, and be
It's even
creative
harder.
about, not eating the same thing every day and all of that. That's challenging.
It is.
Yeah.
It's where I grew up, all the farmers kind of traded produce.
Right.
One would grow black-eyed peas.
Sure.
The other one would grow green beans,
Sure.
and they'd trade. So that way they could kind of keep.
Have a variety.
Yeah, they'd have a variety because it's hard. I think it's easy to plant one or two things and have your neighbor plant one or two things
Right.
and then one or two, and then you all just kind of share.
Yeah, and you also get good at that one thing.
Yeah, you
It's
do.
Like the knowledge of having to plant a million things or know which things need to water what. And yeah.
Yep. It's
Yeah.
super easy that way. That's the way my granny did it anyway. I think she planted like corn, field peas, peppers, tomatoes, strawberries. I don't really remember anything else. But her brother lived down the road and he planted other things
Right.
and they would trade.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. It's cool. It was a cool way to grow up. I don't think I
Absolutely.
grew up quite as rural as you did, as you're
Well,
describing.
and then I was in Santa Fe for the other part of it.
Right, right.
That was just like weekends or long summers or whatever. So
Right.
Santa Fe is a regular town.
What else do you think you learned from that kind of like? I know I learned, which is a curse and a blessing, is that there's no plumber in my
Right.
hometown.
Figure it out. Yeah.
You figure it out, and you do the job until the job is done.
Right.
Right. You don't
Right.
just do the job and go, oh well, I'll finish the well tomorrow.
Right.
Well, then you don't have water.
Right.
Like you can't. There's
Yeah,
a
the
lot of
consequences are real.
Exactly. And that's a blessing and a curse because sometimes I go, I have to put this Adirondack chair today. It must be assembled today.
Well, and also sometimes you don't need to be the plumber. You should get the person that knows really how to be the plumber.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's such a double-edged sword. I mean, like we, in our big fancy house, we have an ice maker, like a under the counter, like
Sure.
ice maker, and it's leaking. And so of course I look at it and I go, it's leaking. Well, let me just take this panel off and see why it's leaking.
Right.
Oh,
Where's
I see
leaking
why
from?
it's leaking. It's leaking right here. I took a picture of it and then I made a digital like square around it with an arrow and a text that said, here's
You're a
why it's leaking.
contractor as well.
Right. And texted it to the guy at the manufacturer. And he was like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what's wrong. I'll be there tomorrow to fix it. And I was like, see how easy that was? But most people would never do that.
Yeah, they'd have to come out and look at it. And then
Yeah.
a week later,
Yeah, they'd never take the panel off and go, well, let me see if I can figure out what's
There's
wrong
water.
with it. Right?
Yeah.
So it's got to be something simple. It's coming from here. We were camping with Hayslip and
Yep.
an RV, and we couldn't figure out how something worked. He has that brain too, which is really fascinating because he grew up in San Diego. He didn't grow up in any kind of rural, but he's one of those guys that goes, okay, is it the gasoline? Is it the air intake? Is it the electric? Is it the spark plug?
Right.
Why is this generator not working?
Right.
And it's just mark them off. And Bert was watching him going, yeah, my brain doesn't work
don't
like
know
that at
how
all.
Well, the day that I knocked myself out with the weight rack, afterward, he showed up with his tools and was like, okay, and we put together all the different things and the way he wanted to line up all the instructions and go through it piece by piece, and
Right.
that's just how he goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting way of living your life when you live in that rural kind of community to move to a city and see how things work differently.
Right.
I had to learn to call a plumber.
Right.
I had to really learn that. Like it didn't occur to me.
Right.
It never occurred to me to
Right.
do.
That was possible.
Yeah. I never.
But also, it
did
probably
that.
taught you, and I see this with you, is that you could do anything. You could figure out anything. So you're not really afraid to touch the ice maker that's leaking or whatever.
Yes,
Whereas some people
true.
might be like, I don't know what to do. Or,
Right.
you know.
I might drown. I mean,
Yeah. I always laugh about like toilets. People like the toilet's clogged and people are just like, I don't know what to do. And it's like, turn the water off, like plunge it, open the thing. It doesn't flush. oh, there. I just remember I worked at this gym, or I was at this gym, and they were like, we can't get the toilet to flush, so they closed the bathroom. And I went in there and like took the back off, and I was like, oh, well, the little chain isn't hooked up to the thing anymore, and did it. And they were like, how did you do that? And I'm like,
God,
really simple.
Not-
You never looked in the back of a toilet? And most people said no.
No.
They didn't even know that was like, that's how it worked.
I know in an apocalypse, I'd like to be back in Georgia, right?
100%. Yeah.
Or over at Hayslip's house.
100%.
We used to
100%.
joke that he would come to our house. Their family would come to our house because we had more canned goods than anybody else.
That's perfect. You have the canned goods, and as long
He
as
has the
Tom's here
know-how.
with you, he can fix it.
Right? He can figure anything out, and I got the canned goods.
Yeah,
so we're
I
an
mean, you and
excellent
Tom
team.
together could make a pretty fierce team in the
We would be
apocalypse.
a good team.
Yeah.
Oh, I podcasted with his daughters, and we were talking about if Tom and I were a couple, we would never talk to each other. We just have nothing to say. But we would get more shit done than any people on this planet. But we'd have no fun
100%.
because we'd just be all working and we'd never talk to each
Yeah,
other.
because Bert and Sandy are like two peas in a pod.
They are the same
And-
human.
Yeah.
And I'm
And they
just
even
saying,
you guys out
I mean, I definitely talk more than Tom does.
for sure.
But Tom and I don't really chit chat.
Right, right.
I don't be, hey, Tom, what's
Right.
today?
Yeah,
We
whereas-
talk about stuff.
Bert and Sandy are the life of the party, so they get you guys out of that shell a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you guys make everything happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
It's really bizarre how that worked out. We feel really lucky to have each other, our families, I think.
It's
Super
really
lucky.
beautiful to see. I mean, I talk about, I think I've told you guys once before, but I, tell some of my friends too, like being around your whole group of the campers,
Mm-hmm.
is just really inspiring in a way. Cause it's, you're all as adults friends,
Mm-hmm.
which I think a lot of people don't, you get less and less adult friends, or like it seems to be the trend, especially when people have kids, is they kind of isolate.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have found a way to have this amazing core group of adult friends that have a lot of fun together,
Mm-hmm.
even though you're all very different. And then that gives the space for the kids to have, a community as well. And
Yeah.
it just feels like family. You guys all feel like family with each other, which is really special.
It is really special. And I think it is really
Especially in
special.
Los Angeles.
Especially in Los Angeles. I think it is profoundly special.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't take it for granted.
Yeah.
Even if someone's upset with someone, or because that happens in every family.
Sure. You guys handle it well. I've watched you guys do that, and you all joke with each other really well. And like,
Yes,
it's
a lot
impressive.
of levity in this group. A lot of levity.
Yep.
I think levity is the key to life.
Right.
If you can't have some levity about stuff, when it gets hard, it's too hard.
Yeah. You can add to your own suffering that way, or you create your own
For
suffering.
sure. Yeah, we are super lucky. And all the campers appreciate it when you come. They all love it and they all hate to miss.
It's so fun. It's
it is fun.
literally sometimes people are like, what are you doing Saturday? I was like, I got this thing. And they're like, what? I'm like, well, it's called Crush Fest and it's so much fun.
It's
like,
16 people, 8 adults,
I know.
8
I'm
children.
like, it started out as 4 people, then 8 people. At one point, I think we had 16 people. And I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know how we're going to fit all these people in here.
I know it hasn't been 16 much. I bet
that
we
there
get
was
back
one
to it in
time.
September because
Yeah.
Tom will be wrapped, Bert will be off,
And
and,
then it'll be on.
it'll be on.
It's great because now there's the grass too. So we can
Yes, way better.
spread out.
Totally. I'm looking forward to Crush
And
Fest.
the cold plunge. When the cold plunge comes back, that was one of the best days too, I think, because
it was awesome.
we didn't get you in there.
No, I'm a chicken. So Bert has a polar plunge. It's really a horse trough that we fill. But no, we did my bathtub,
Used
didn't
your
we?
bathtub.
That's right. I
We used
forgot.
your really
Oh
nice
my
bathtub
God.
that was still in the crate.
Yes.
We popped the top off, and then we used whatever towels we had in here to like stuff in the holes of the bathtub to stop it from leaking everywhere. And then you guys had ice delivered,
Yep.
and we filled that up, and everybody got in.
Except
And
me.
every day except for you. I don't think
think
Sandy didn't get
did.
in either.
Uh-uh.
The moms didn't get in. The dads got in, the girls got in. And we did a little bit of breath work first, which is always fun because people, even if they've done a cold plunge or an ice bath before, if they haven't done breath work before it, you can't withstand the time. Or usually people do a minute and they're like, I'm out. And so I remember telling Bert like 3 minutes, and he looked at me like I was crazy.
Yeah.
The only person that was like, oh yeah, for sure was Thomas Hayslip. And he was
Of
like,
course.
I could do 25 minutes because she's got this like crazy, like masochistic side. I was like, I believe it. And he did. I think he did 10 minutes. But
Of course. he
yeah,
did.
everyone breathed. And I think it was cool for the girls to like watch their dads do it. I think the dads were blown away by watching the girls do it. It was pretty amazing.
It was awesome.
And I was
yeah.
just praying that everyone had like zippers on their shorts. I'm like, if you scratch this bathtub, I will kill you.
No, it
Your
was
brand new
fine.
bathtub.
It's fine. It's in the bathroom now. It works
Yeah,
fine.
it works fine.
That was a cool day. We had a lot of cool days.
Yeah, so many cool days.
It was, yeah.
The first time Isla climbed the rope in the tree,
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
She climbed that rope almost every day.
she was like, I remember the day she was like, I just got to check and make sure I can still do it.
I think that was the beginning of her understanding. Maybe she doesn't understand, but I think that was the change.
There's a breakthrough moment. Everyone has
yeah.
at any level, people can, and this happens across the board, and it can keep happening. Like people have breakthrough moments. And
Right.
it's like, you have to have those breakthrough moments in order for you to level up, but also to like trust in the process and like get to this mindset and an accomplishment that I can do something else. And that, we needed to find something that she could do successfully to feel proud about. That's cool.
I think
just
she
did it.
needed to be the best at something.
For sure.
I think, and although I don't think she's competitive necessarily with other people,
Yeah.
I think she is aware
Sure.
that she's lifting the lightest weight, that she's,
Sure.
the slowest at doing squat. Like she's kind
Sure.
of, trailing the
Yep.
team
Right.
a bit, and she's aware of that.
Right.
So for her to do something no one else could do
Yeah.
was another piece of that puzzle because no one
Absolutely.
else could climb that rope.
Absolutely.
And she's so damn skinny.
Yep.
I mean, it takes no muscle to get her up there.
Totally. She
She
weighs
does.
like 8 pounds. She actually just floats up there.
Exactly.
A strong wind can help her get up there.
You should see her little face when the first time she did it. It was like amazement and
Yeah.
pride.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe I did it. And I did it.
Well, that's a cool thing about our bodies too. We're all so different. So whereas Georgia can deadlift an insane amount of weight, there's going to be stuff that Isla can do that Georgia isn't good at. And
Right.
that's, we just have to learn that. And I think it takes, if we only measure things one way, then, we might discount ourselves or cut ourselves down or whatever goes through our head when we get into points of self-esteem issues. But then if you start to realize that everyone's different and, you're all your own beautiful snowflake, as they say, then you're like, can find the things about you that are awesome.
Right.
And it's like, that's what she's finding.
I think that is what she's finding. I'm super proud of her. I'm proud of Georgia too, obviously. But I think there's some things, both kids have different things worked out
Sure.
in life. And this is a part of Isla's life I wanted her to start working out.
Sure.
To start figuring out and
Yeah.
start kind of taking ownership of
Yeah.
is, how she feels about herself.
Yep.
Georgia's never had that problem. Georgia's problems are in other places.
Right.
But I'm super happy
Yeah.
that
That's really cool.
you are the biggest effect on that.
That makes me
For
so
sure.
happy.
It's true. So when you're working people out on your job, do you ever have someone you go, this is the least athletic person on the planet?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
Well, it's just like there are moments, and I get spoiled a lot because I've been able, I've worked with a lot of people that are at really high levels that do their own stunts and do all they just know their body so well that my biggest job is like I said, holding space or dialing them back. So I think, that can be a challenge in itself, but then sometimes you're confronted with somebody that like the mind body connection doesn't happen at all. And I've seen it a lot more so with women, sometimes with men, but it's like more so with women. Sometimes after childbirth, which is like an interesting thing. Sometimes women get stronger after childbirth and they have a deeper connection with their like root. And then there's some women that disassociate. And now, whatever that traumatic experience was, they don't even communicate with their core anymore. And so figuring out how to break it down for people. And that is kind of going back to what I said earlier. There's 3 different ways that people learn. It's either visual, it's verbal, or tactile in fitness anyways. So I might be able to write something on the board and then verbalize it in hopefully 10 or less words. If I'm a good coach, if I start speaking too much, it's too confusing. And some people can just hear that cue and be like, great, toes out, knees out, whatever. And then some people need to literally be like, okay, hit my hand with your back right now. It's pretty common in the deadlift. So people will do this thing where they'll like lift their hips first and then their shoulders never go back. So they end up like, you know, like in like a stripper move is what we call it. So it's just like this, the bend and snap from Legally Blonde. But that's pretty bad for your back and you can't lift as much. So sometimes you can say, hey, move your shoulders at the same time, pretend like you're pushing something back and it just won't click. And then you can actually put your hand on their back and say push. And then that will be the moment that makes it click for somebody. And so it's like figuring out how that person learns and then trying different types of cues, because it's also, you know, you'll know this if you get coached by a new person, you'll be like, oh, I never heard it that way before. And it really resonated with the way that you said that made sense to me. It's not going to make sense for everyone that way, but you pick up those different things. And so trying to vary what you're saying and how you're teaching something, I think is really important. And if there's a group of people around, that's the challenge, is being able to like connect with everyone in that way, especially quickly if we have, you know, 16 people in here and we're trying to like move through a workout.
Totally.
I'm trying
16
to teach
very
someone.
different people.
Everyone's body is so different.
I mean, not one person is the same in this group.
It's probably the most challenging class I've ever
It has to be, because you have age 13 to 51.
Yeah.
And everything in between.
Yeah, but
right?
you guys are all game for it. I always think back on like, I took a very ambitious choice to teach Turkish get-ups one day, and everyone was game and did it. But like the levels of frustration on different people's faces, I was like, this was an interesting choice, Lacey, with this many people.
With this many people.
This many people.
It is fascinating to watch the whole group in this perspective, because we've always done stuff together, obviously.
Right.
But nothing completely physical.
Right.
You know, we go for a hike.
Right.
But that's about what
Sure.
do you see? What are you talking about? You know,
Right.
nothing completely physical like this. And it is really interesting to watch how
Do
each
you
person
notice like
processes.
different personality traits in people now that you found out in the
Yes.
gym, and then you recognize?
Yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. You learn a lot about people when you work out together.
You do. You learn a lot about how they process failure. Processing failure is the most important thing you can do in your whole life.
Or take feedback too. And it's like, that's something interesting for me a lot. Like, and you'll understand this, just like being a woman and the thing, like correcting grown men sometimes can be a challenge in how you say that and how they're going to take it. And
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah,
like,
I would imagine, yeah.
yeah. So it's an interesting lesson in how they handle it.
Well, I'll tell you something about Bert Kreischer. He's so funny because he is one of the smartest people I've ever known. I love and adore him. Sometimes he can be the biggest meathead, like misogynistic, patriarchal meathead on the planet. But he is surrounded by women,
Yeah. And he responds well.
to women.
Yeah.
He responds to men also,
Right.
but he responds phenomenally well to women.
Right.
As he turns around and goes, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's a woman.
Right.
And then he'll do exactly what that woman has
Yeah.
said
And he trusts it fully.
to the letter, 100%.
Yeah.
He is a walking dichotomy, that
Right.
guy.
Right.
Because I think he's just recently, like in the past maybe 3 years, figured out how reliant he is on like female energy, female intelligence.
His whole support team is pretty
the
much
whole
female.
support team.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah. I mean, he can bro out with the bros, but it's like his whole support team and his family,
yeah.
his sisters, his daughters.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would arguably say one of his top 3 very best friends is Sandy.
Yeah.
I mean, like, absolutely.
Yeah.
He would die for her.
Right.
And I think she would reverse die for him almost.
I hope they
maybe,
don't have to die for
sort
each
of.
other.
No,
Guys, you
but
don't have to
know
die
what
for
I
each
mean.
other.
No, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
they absolutely adore each other.
Totally.
And I go, it's once again a woman.
Right.
So I was, to be honest with you, when Tom was like, I have this woman, Lacey,
Right.
and I was like, oh shit, here we go. He's going to be an asshole because he does that sometimes.
Right.
But he responds to you better than anybody. He
Yeah.
worked out with me once with my trainer.
Oh, I bet that was intense.
And when it was over, he was like, oh, I don't think I'm ever doing that again. I was like, why? He was like, I mean, I never even caught my breath. There was no time to stop. I mean, it was just arms. I was like,
For the record, what you guys do 3 times a week is impressive to me. I'm
it's crazy.
It's like you
It's
guys
crazy.
love to suffer, but it's good.
I know. I was just talking about this with him this week. I was like, I think I have a little punitive bone.
Totally.
I think I have some kind of punitive punishment.
I've only
he went,
heard them
"Oh,
and
yeah."
watched you guys, but I'm like, yeah, it's impressive. And you guys just go for it.
Well,
The whole
he's.
time you're in there breathing and doing those movements.
Yeah, I actually love working out with him.
Yeah.
Bert literally one time he was like, I can never. I'm just sticking with Lacey. It was one time where I was like, I'm working out with Mikkel.
Just jump
You want to
in.
jump in?
Yeah.
That's what he did. It was
Yeah.
in between.
Totally.
So he's already working out with you like 3 days.
Totally.
Oh yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll do what these little girls are doing on the side.
Whatever these little ladies
the
are
little
doing.
girls
yeah.
are lifting weights.
Right.
And I had to
And
actually
dying.
He would die. He would
That's
die.
like me in a soul cycle class.
He would not be happy if I told him this, but I gave him the 7-pound weights and I
Uh-oh.
took the 5s.
Yeah.
I always use the 7s. And
Right.
halfway through, he was like, would you trade with me? So I had to trade with him and take the 7s
No
so he could do
way.
the 5s. Because unlike what we do with you,
Yeah, it's different.
Mikkel is like repetition.
Yeah.
So I'm doing like, I did squats for 50 minutes one day,
Yeah.
literally straight.
Yeah.
Different arm movements, but my lower body did squats for 50 fucking
Yeah.
minutes.
And you guys
I
are
thought I was
very
done.
strong because of it and have like minimal
Right.
injuries and
Yes.
it's great.
Yes,
Yeah.
he with the injuries is amazing. But so I'd been used to like lifting these dumbbells
Right.
for 30 minutes.
Forever.
He was like, I think I'm
gonna
going to need
die.
the 5s.
That's like me walking into a soul cycle class, like, whatever, this is going to be so
Totally.
easy. And then I'm almost falling out of the chair and I have the one, first I'm like, give me bigger weights. These are ridiculous. 2 pounds. And then a minute later, I'm like, I need the 1 pound. So don't like, get the 1 pound.
It's because it's not something
different.
yeah, it's totally different.
Yeah.
It's totally different experience.
It's a totally different workout.
But I brought it
No.
up once that I lifted the 7 and he did the 5 and it didn't go well. So I
Yeah.
haven't mentioned it
Now
yet.
it's on the air, everybody. You heard it here
You heard it first, right? Bert Kreischer was outlifted by his wife.
7
Just saying.
5s. Look out.
Yeah,
but he also likes to work out the way that I like to work out, and
Yes.
it's really fun.
I think you are well
And,
matched.
Yeah, it's like, let's lift heavy, let's go hard, let's do these like very meathead movements.
Yeah.
that are just super fun to do.
He
And
freaking loves it.
it's so good, and I think most people, it's like an interesting thing for me. I had a couple of people that were working on the show just give me feedback. And I said, what did you think? Like when I walked in the room, like, did you think that? And they were like, actually, I wasn't sure. Like, you look really strong, but is it going to be like the movie look that I'm looking for or whatever? And it's just interesting to see, is she going to be able to train these dudes in order to get to these like crazy stunt levels or do this like fight work? And then it always works out. But it's a very interesting judgment that happens. And I always wonder what people think when I first walk through the door. Is this going to be a girl that can handle these guys?
I don't remember thinking anything about you, but just being open. But I remember thinking about Bert.
You were worried about Bert.
I was like, oh shit, what's going down? I mean,
I think
it was good.
Tom knew it would be a good vibe.
Tom would
Yeah.
never have sent you if it
Yeah.
weren't. He is so smart like that.
Totally.
He would never have sent
I
you.
have such like bad imposter syndrome sometimes where I'm like, people like nobody's getting better. Like everyone thinks I'm this weird yoga instructor, like doing this thing. And, somebody the other day was like, pretty much Tom wouldn't put you in these positions if that's what they thought of you. And I
Right.
was like, okay, you're right.
That's true. He's pretty smart that way.
Yeah.
He's pretty savvy
Yeah.
with who works with who well and who does their job the way they're supposed to.
Right. Yeah.
He talk about not suffering fools. That guy doesn't suffer fools ever,
At all.
personally or professionally.
Yeah.
He just doesn't.
Yeah. He'll cut
So-
it right out. He doesn't have time for inefficiencies.
Nope. So, yeah, I mean, he immediately jumped on it. He was like, "You should work out with Lacey." He knew exactly what Bert needed.
Yeah, he called me. He was like, "Hey, I'm with Bert. Could you meet this afternoon? We need to put a gym together. I know that you're the person to do that, and I think he needs to start training immediately." I was like, "Okay, is that okay with you? Because I'm kind of working for you right now." And he's like, "Yeah, just don't let it get in the way of this other thing." I'm like, okay, great,
Right.
let's do it.
He is so protective of Bert. He's such a sweet guy. I think sometimes I feel like he wishes Bert would just let him do it.
Mhm.
Like just let me have it. Just let me do it for you because, you know,
because he could do it. He does things at a level that, I mean, most people can't even dream of until they actually see it in action. There's this huge plane sequence in like a very big movie that I've talked to him about it, and so I won't get the story perfectly right because I'm paraphrasing what he said to me. But basically, you know, there was nobody else that's ever pulled this off before. And in order to pull some things off with insurance and all this stuff in movies, it's like a no. But he knew that he couldn't get a no. So he just did it himself. And he figured out like the flight safety, the like ground safety, like all the stuff. And he self-appointed himself this person. And then the lead actor was like, like, let's get the professional and he's like, no, it's me. Like nobody else wanted to take this on. And he figured it out. And it's to this day, like one of the most unbelievable things that's ever been done on film.
I agree.
And everything he does is like that.
Yeah. Everything.
Yeah.
It's kind of
And he keeps people safe too.
You should vacation with him.
I can imagine.
Everything's like that.
I mean,
what are we doing today? We're parasailing, and then we're swimming with dolphins, and then we're jumping off a cliff, and then we're going to take a boat all the way across the Panama Canal. Ready?
Let's go. That's like my dad. My dad is just like that.
Yeah. Sandy and Bert are like, when's the cocktails in this
just
day?
Hang out. Yeah,
right? Where's the day at the pool? And
Totally.
if we have a day at the pool, he just paces.
Totally.
Paces the pool.
I just saw him pacing the other day on set. And I was like, are you pacing? And he was like, yes. I was like, it's 7 p.m. It's time to go home.
Oh my
God. Like, you're still here. But I haven't gone on vacation with him, but I have traveled for work with him. And that's, you know, that is so dialed.
Yep.
Yeah. Everything to the T.
Yep.
He has trusted me to self-drive myself right off a plane in the UK though before, which I did question one time, but I did fine. I'm alive still. Wrong side of the road, just like, who thought this was a good idea?
Okay, so when did you start your coffee company?
Coffee company started in 2013 as like a fun side project where Tate Fletcher, Keith Jardine, and myself, all working in film, had really got into drinking coffee because we were working in film and doing, you know, crazy shift work hours, so 12 hours, 16 hours a day. At the time, it's gotten a lot better now, but at the time there was horrible things to eat in craft service. It was like Cheetos and like Slim Jims or whatever and sodas. And so Tate and Keith were doing action stuff. I was traveling with one of the biggest action people in the world and trying to just like keep myself alive basically. And so we started drinking coffee with stuff in it. So it would be like, we'd make these huge thermoses of like single origin, hand-picked, like single source coffee with butter, coconut oil, protein, all this stuff in it, which kind of defeats the taste portion of like the super high-end coffee. But if you're looking at like nutrient quality, that's what we were thinking about. And then that would kind of like essentially create like a fasted state that you could survive in for a really long amount of time till you could eat like a real meal. And we all just got really heavily into that. Plus it keeps your energy up without brain fog, like all these things. So we got super addicted to it. And we met these two Colombian brothers that owned their family's farm. They have a crazy story of like fleeing Colombia during the Escobar days and like the cartel days and being almost kidnapped and held for ransom and like all this stuff. And so that was amazing. And they were fans of Tate and Keith. So they started roasting for us. And we said, hey, let's share this coffee. I created a website. We weren't ready to launch it. Tate, it was like back in the early days of like, oh, Facebook and Squarespace can actually integrate. It was, I think, the first time they could do that. And I said, hey, Tate, I'm going to just integrate this to your Facebook page. So he reposted it. And then we sold like 300 bags of coffee overnight. And I was like, oh, this is like a serious thing.
Right.
So we bootstrapped that for the last, I mean, now it's been forever. It's weird to say it's a startup still, but you know, we only sold beans for a while. Then we got into the cold brew game a couple years later. And then it became, I even like stopped working in film for the last couple of years to focus on that because it became such a huge behemoth of a project. And we've grown into now, you know, multiple flavors, multiple SKUs. We've survived COVID, which is crazy. We were about to go into grocery. I was driving the truck to Expo West, which is the big natural food show down in Anaheim. It's the biggest convention, I think, in the food world. And that's when they said, your booth has been canceled. And I was like, what are they talking about? This isn't real. Like this thing isn't a thing. Or maybe it's just going to be gone for 2 weeks. So they were like, we'll postpone it for a couple of weeks. And of course it hasn't happened since. But luckily we were set up to be an online company when that happened. People love coffee.
Yep.
And our suppliers kept up for the most part. We've had a little bit of delay actually this year with some stuff, but it's starting to come back online. So
it's good coffee.
thank you.
I like it a lot.
appreciate that. I appreciate you guys supporting it, which you have.
I haven't bought any more for a while. I need to go online.
It's probably
and do
good because we're just now getting it back in stock.
that. Perfect timing.
Yeah. So we, I've always been of a business mind, and I love, just like you, like producing things and figuring things out, and like starting businesses is really fun and creative, and then figuring out how to grow and upscale them and learning about that is a really fun process for me. So we started that in 2013. It was something that I could do while I was on a gym trailer in, the UK or Colombia or whatever, waiting to work. The film industry is a lot of hurry up and wait because everyone has one role, which I realize that's so important when you try to do multiple roles in something and you forget, something gets left out. So in the film industry, everyone has one role, which means that sometimes you're waiting around for a long time.
Right.
So starting an online business was pretty cool. I traveled with a chiropractor usually, and we call ourselves like gym team or gym team on standby. And then we came up with this funny joke about like Jim's Team on Standby LLC. And it would be like the two gym team members creating their other online businesses. Like one of the guys had like a blog and like health coaching, and I was doing a coffee company. And so, yeah, it's been this thing that grew way bigger than I think any of us ever dreamed it would grow. And it's still growing. Last year was actually our biggest year yet.
No way. That's great.
It was incredible. Yeah, really
great.
incredible. So, and a lot of it was just figuring things out, like going from having these two brothers roast for us. We outgrew them eventually, obviously, like their farm can only supply so much coffee. Finding other co-packing situations, which is essentially like finding the people that have the right certifications that you could sell a product and ship it over state lines. When you get into like a consumable beverage in a can, that becomes a whole nother can of worms about pasteurization and getting FDA approval and just figuring all those things out. You can't just like make your mom and pop thing, and then the minute you ship it over state lines, it can become a federal crime if something goes wrong. So, so you want to make sure that you're, if you're doing food, that you figure those things out. And
Right.
so, it's definitely been a learning process. I didn't go through school to be a food, packaging person or a, even like a branding. I did business marketing, so I have a branding, degree, but figuring out the ins and outs of having consumable products and how to do that has been a huge learning process for me. And now I actually, during COVID, I started consulting for a company that helps other brands like get their stuff into co-packing and manufacturing. So it's been a skill that I taught myself, that I learned, and continues to be like another side job that I can do in all that spare time I have right now. I don't have, but
Right.
yeah, it's nice.
I would
It's
imagine
cool.
you don't have a lot of spare time right now.
I mean, it's just about time management. It's hard. It's getting harder for me to like shift gears between those two worlds.
Got it.
It like the personality, I think it's almost like a part of your brain. The personality that comes out when you're coaching and you're in front of people and you're interacting is very different than sitting behind a computer and spreadsheets and all of that. So it's just a matter of like figuring out how to shift back and forth for me,
Right.
which is interesting.
Yeah. It is a challenge, isn't it,
Mm-hmm.
to go for to wear so many hats and roles.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to talk about what you brought up about women getting disassociated from their body after childbirth.
Yeah.
I was talking about this on my podcast this morning, not exactly the same thing, but how do you, are you able to get them back connected? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and some people are harder than others. But I think coming back, I think people in general in this day and age, and I'll talk more about women, but because we're attached to our devices and we're in front of computers and screens and TVs and like getting all this information, we become so detached from our self in our body. And there's studies that show this, we even start to lose our breath, right? We breathe shallowly. We just like, it's almost like we're like this weird, organism and this like parasite is like taking over us, which is a weird way to put it, but also kind of very true. And so breath is the number one thing that brings people back into their body. And so if you think about, okay, you can talk about a meditation practice, which might be too much for some people or like seems too far out there. But if you just think about sitting quietly without a device or a distraction and listening to your body while you breathe, and where is your breath going in your body and what does that feel like? That's the easiest path to like coming back into your body. And so when we do, what I call activations or a warm up, we always do something that involves breath. Like right now I've been doing the bear pose, which is where you're in the tabletop and your knees are lifted off the ground. And then you have to do the breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. And everyone has to do that. And that brings you into your body. If you do yoga practice, most people do breath work. If you get in the ice, you do breath work. Like all of those things bring you back in. And what's interesting with women is that in general, most women who have had a pregnancy or gone through labor learn some sort of breathing technique to come in there. And you might see it come out again when they work out. They'll do the same breathing technique because they learned that. And that was like their survival thing. So when things get really hard, they go back to that breath and that connection. What I've learned, and I haven't worked with, it hasn't just been women, but the women that I have seen that have disassociated from their body from whatever that is, whether it was like a traumatic childbirth or a C-section, because then you're not actually like as part of it, right? You're numbed out a little bit. There is this disconnection with their core, and you can see it in every single move because you need your core in every single move, right? It's the most important part. So if I see a woman doing squats and they're like leaning forward a lot and they're not getting fully into it, and I say, lift your chest up, and they just can't do it, it's because they're not activating their lower core. So that happens in weightlifting, that happens almost in everything. And you can do different, break the movement down into smaller movements and eventually get to the point where you're trying to only activate obliques, which you might just be doing a leg lift or something like that. And there are women that can't do that. And, if I talk to them about like, when did that change? And it's like, well, after I had kids. And part of that too is like, your body, I can't remember the name of the chemical, but like in order for your muscles to relax enough to allow this child to grow in you, is it elastin? It's something like that. Your body releases a chemical to like let your muscles let go. So then after you've had a child in postpartum, it's very rarely talked about. Some programs have it, but like you have to then physically work your way back into activating those muscles again. Otherwise your body is turned off and you might not have that like brain body connection anymore.
Interesting. So then when the hormone releases, that lets your muscles go. When the hormone normalizes, your muscles don't just go and back to normal.
Right. Well, especially in the type of lifestyle that we live in, because I think, if you think back to like primal days, well, they would have to go back because you would be carrying that kid and gathering or whatever you're doing. You'd be physical. And obviously like women didn't live as long and things like that. But it's just like, there would be physical challenges that I think would be part of that process. And so now we don't recognize postpartum as regularly in our society. We just believe like get right back to work, and postpartum is like a condition. A lot of times it's referred to as like postpartum depression or whatever. But it's like, I think that women, I think if you like talk to a doula or somebody in that field, they'll say, well, postpartum could be like 3 to 6 years later too. Women go through huge changes in their body, hormonally, emotionally, muscularly. And so how can we effectively come back after having a child to maybe not the same visual body? I think that's what everyone like goes for, but like, how can we get our movement back? How can we get our pelvic floor back? How can we get all of those things back? And that's like, you actually have to train that. Just like if you got injured, you went through a traumatic car accident, childbirth can be very traumatic on your body. It is. You would then go to rehab and see a PT to get back to like regular movement. And there are programs out there that do it, but it's not necessarily like a wildly known thing,
not mainstream
or talked about.
No. Childbirth is terrible. And I'll be honest with you, for all those women that had that storybook amazing experience, God bless you.
Right.
And you're lucky. But the truth is, you're mutilated, like inside and out.
Yeah.
Really.
Right.
That's what's happened is you've just destroyed this big part of your person.
Right.
Just like if you blew out your hamstring or it's obviously not the same, but it kind of is.
It is the same. It's
as far as the human body reads for injury and trauma, I understand it's a joyful thing to have a baby. That's, of course, goes without saying. But the shit that happened in my body after Georgia Kreischer got here was beyond traumatic.
Right.
And I believe it took me a long time to get over it.
Well, it's also interesting because it's not really talked about, right?
No.
Like they don't tell you that like going into it. Like,
Not
by
only is
the
it
way,
not talked about, it's not acceptable to feel that way.
Right.
It's not
yourself
acceptable for
together.
you to go, what if your dick exploded? And then someone said, how about we have sex?
100%.
I don't think you'd be like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Or maybe you would because the dick rules everything. But personally, I just blew my shit all over the place.
Right.
And they stitched me up.
Yeah.
And now I'm just supposed to feel sexy?
And they didn't really talk about it.
No.
Right.
They didn't talk about anything that's going on. And this is super graphic, but everything's very loose.
Right.
That happened. I mean, how could it not be?
Right. It has
push
to.
a big old baby through your vagina. Everything's loose for a long time.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel emotionally very different. I'm a
Right.
super resilient person.
Right.
But I tell you what, that childbirth is one of the most traumatic things I've ever been through. Ever.
You literally like destroyed parts of you.
Yeah.
And there's and no one gave you the roadmap to come back out of it. Right.
There's
So
no path to recovery.
Right. Which is like you have to really seek it out. And there are women that there's one of my friends runs a thing. She's a chiropractor. Lacie Matthews does a thing called Birth Fit, and she's a doula, and she works with women to come back in their postpartum times and goes through that. And there's lots of women out there doing that, but it's not a mainstream thing.
I didn't know that existed.
Yeah.
No idea. And if you think about it, I should have seen a chiropractor. I should have seen a masseuse.
Yeah.
I should have. Sandy's mom is obviously is Chinese, but she's from China and then lived her adult life in Vietnam. And Sandy was born in Vietnam.
Right.
But when Sandy had her babies, her mom came out and did all this Chinese medicine stuff literally to her vagina.
Right.
And I was like, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
I'm not from China.
Right.
I didn't
Here's
have
what
any
we
of
do.
that available.
Yeah.
Here's
Give
what
you the
do.
epidural
Here's a
and then send you
maxi
home.
pad.
Yeah, here's some weird underwear things.
You may be on this thing for 6 weeks.
Good
Have
luck.
fun.
Yeah.
And you're going to smell like rotting meat. Sorry. Nothing I can do about that. And I can't
Too
even tell you
bad.
why. It's a hormonal thing. Nothing, no treatment. You just got to ride it out.
Right.
Super sexy, that part.
100%.
And-
you might be depressed. Your emotions are going to be everywhere. Your hormones actually aren't going to rebound for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your belly's hanging out over your britches.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
And you have to take care of this new life now.
And you're not
By
sleeping.
the way, you're responsible for
Yeah.
this thing. Good
and you're
luck.
not sleeping.
Yeah.
Because you got to wake up to feed this baby.
Which is the most important part of recovery is rest.
It's sleep. And you
Yeah.
can't sleep. It's just the whole thing is bunk.
Yeah.
Not obviously childbirth and having children is not bunk.
Right.
But the way we deal with it as a culture and a society is total bunk.
Well, and it's also even the preparation for it. And I've never had a kid, so I haven't experienced it firsthand, but I've watched a lot of my friends go through it, and I've had a lot of friends that are very passionate about the subject. And it's like you're preparing for the greatest, if you think of it as the greatest athletic performance of your life.
Absolutely.
Right? This
Yep.
labor could go on for days.
Totally.
And it could also kill you. Like there's a fairly high rate of death until recently in childbirth. And so this is something that you have to prepare for, and it needs to be mentally and physically. And there are like entire fitness programs now, but people again have to seek that out. And whereas my grandma said, well, back in the day, they just told me like, make sure you don't develop any muscle and you just kind of lay around a lot and be as relaxed as possible. And she was like, in hindsight, that was a horrible advice because
Yeah.
I needed to be strong and like ready to pop this kid out. And that is a muscular thing as well. So
Totally.
yeah, it's a very strange way that we approach it. And it's, probably partly because of a very like male dominated medical field for a long time, although there are changes happening right now. And there's, I think changes are happening in a good way because there are so many women that are like seeking this out. I know, again, from being around some of these doulas, that I think like Cedars here had like a 50% C-section rate at one point. And it was kind of like the theory was get people in and out and it would be less traumatic, right? Because it's like real quick. But there's also now we've realized that that is very traumatic. And there's actually something really important about the birth canal for the baby and like immune systems and things like that. And so I think now they're down to like 19% or something. But it wasn't, it's not an emergency thing. It used to be for a while thing in the 90s and early 2000s that we just like recommended it. Like go ahead and schedule. I was born that way where like the doctor scheduled the time with my mom because he was going out of town for Thanksgiving.
Oh my God.
It was like, how about Thanksgiving is going to be on the 24th this year. Let's go on the 22nd. She was like, okay.
Sounds good.
Great.
Yeah, I think, I have a lot to say about Cedars and childbirth, and it's not good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are some changes happening, but it is unfortunately taking like advocates and people talking about it and being very vocal about, this experience maybe isn't the best way of doing it. And maybe we do need to talk about it more and have some more resources for women that are considering having kids, that are pregnant with kids, or that have already had kids and realize like how long that postpartum phase really is, which is, I mean, after you have a kid, that's your postpartum forever. But,
you are, like, but at the same time, there is, I had postpartum with Isla. I don't know if I had it with Georgia. I'm sure I had some of it, but with Isla, I fucking had it.
Right.
And I was rageful.
Right.
Just rageful. I was not depressed.
Right.
I was not sad.
Right.
I was angry all the time. And I kept going in my head going, this is not right. I actually don't agree with my feelings.
Yeah, you knew it was hormonal. It wasn't you.
Yeah, I was, but I thought for people who are not maybe as self-aware, what this must be like for them because they're living in that as their absolute reality.
Right.
And I knew this wasn't right. And I waited for my body to kind of adjust and it just never did. So I went to the doctor and she was like, oh, you need some estrogen.
Right.
Here's a birth control pill. It's not about birth control. Yeah. It's about estrogen.
It'll help you with your hormone levels.
And as soon as I got on it, like within a couple days, everything just started de-escalating.
Well, that kind of reminds me of a thing that I like to tell people too, is like, it's important to have blood work done at various stages in your life because, had you had blood work done, I mean, I'm sure they saw that and saw, oh, your estrogen markers are so low. But if you have blood work done, even when things aren't happening to you, then you have a good baseline for when something is happening to you. You can see, wow, this is way off.
Right.
And way different.
Right.
And obviously women, your hormones are changing so much in that time.
Yes.
And any factor could affect that too. What you eat, how you sleep, how you're working out, how you train before, how you train after, all of those things are going to change every day and they're going to change the way that your actual body makeup is going to respond to you. Right.
And your recovery time. I think your recovery, getting help. I was talking to Bert's sister about this today. She had postpartum. She's actually going to come on a podcast and talk to me about her postpartum with a therapist who specializes in postpartum. I'm having a hard time getting their schedules to line up.
Cool.
So I don't think she would mind me saying this because she's going to talk about it. But, there's that part of your brain that goes, I should be able to do this.
Right.
Why can't I just do this?
Right.
Because I think it's so not socially acceptable to say, I can't do this.
I don't feel good.
And I'm not right.
Right.
And I need medication.
Right.
And I may not need medication forever, but I need it right now.
Yep.
So because everything is so wacko in your body.
Right.
How in the world, I don't know. And I think about too, if we're tribal beings, right? We were supposed to live in communal groups, then what did postpartum look like then?
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up. Like we live in these isolated situations where, okay, you have a baby now, you're expected to provide for it. You and your husband are just, whatever, but like it's primarily on the single woman that's now trying to recover from this traumatic 9 to 10 month experience on their body. If there's no one there to like take that crying baby away for a minute, like when do you get your peace? And we are a tribal people or a tribal existence. And if, you look back on other times, before, I mean, even if you go to other countries now, you know, the grandparents and the aunts, everyone will come in and help with that caretaking of that baby and that child so that the mother has some time. And that's not really accepted in our society.
It's not in the society
way we set it
of
up.
white folks, I think.
Right.
But,
Absolutely.
Because I mean, a lot of cultures in America are multi-generational households.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
grandparents take care of the kids while parents work and earn a living, and then
Sure.
their kids have kids, and it shifts, and that's kind of the way the hierarchy works. I think in a lot of cultures,
Sure.
that and that seems to me to be much more balanced for
100%.
everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, then the grandparents have a great relationship with their grandkids. The kids get 2 sets of elders.
Yeah.
Lots of support there.
And they get generational advice too. And it's
Yes.
like during those times where the kids are like mad at their parents, you know, there's always that friction between like daughters and moms or sons and dads. They can go to the grandparents and get this like different type of advice and feel
Yes.
that love.
Yeah, I think it's a shame that we've moved away from that. Even though I can't imagine living, although I love my dad.
Right.
I
was gonna
can't
say,
imagine living
even
with my
saying
dad.
that, I'm like, would I move my mom into my house? I love you, Mom. Don't be mad.
And I have friends who live with their in-laws, and it's
Right.
very difficult. So I don't know. I guess it's also a double-edged sword.
Sure.
How do you do
There's
that?
trade-offs to each situation.
Yeah.
But my friends recently had their second child, and the same thing happened on the first one where her parents, they're Croatian, they flew in and said, like, we're going to stay here for 3 months. So when they bought their house, they made sure they had a second room for the parents. And I said, how are you going to feel about that, to my friend Mike? And he said, I don't know, I'm kind of weirded out by it, but I guess like we'll see how it goes. And then now he loves it so much he doesn't want them to leave. And
Oh my
she's
God.
ready for like her parents to go away, but he's like, no, I want them to stay. And like,
This is amazing.
yeah, it's great.
That's
He
so crazy.
loves the dad, and they golf and they take care of the kids, and then they both go to work, and the
Yeah.
grandparents take care of the babies.
And then you know that they're with their grandparents.
Yeah.
Just kind of amazing.
Yeah.
So what dream of yours have you not accomplished?
Well, I'd like to be a homeowner.
Yeah.
And that's like a manageable dream. That's just a matter of like deciding when and where. LA is a difficult place for that.
Yes, it is.
So that's something that I'm like working on right now. I would like to, grow and sell a business. I have the coffee company, and I have a event production company that's like coming out of COVID. We'll see, it's doing okay right now. But I would like to take a company like fully to the end. And then I would like to be back in the production world a little bit on the other side of the production life and produce films. And so I've been an executive producer of live events pre-COVID for 10 years, huge events, multi-million-dollar events, concerts, pop-ups, shops, like nationwide tours, things like that. And it's not that far off being able to do that. In fact, that's like, because it's public and live, is a lot more pressure in a different way than something that's, creating and shooting. I did produce a short during COVID. During this time, I flew back to Mexico and did a quick one. We're finally editing that now, hopefully in time for Sundance. So that's cool. So yeah, I would love to get into that. It's really fun for me. Doing that short, I just felt 100% within my wheelhouse. There wasn't a moment there that I was like confused about what needed to be done or felt out of my element. It just came second nature. And so it's kind of a weird thing to be like, I'm going to go from trainer to producer. But, I've lived in all these worlds before and again, worn many different hats. And I think that is the next logical step for me from a like career challenge standpoint.
Interesting.
I think I'll do that. I mean, and I don't say I necessarily want to I love training and like doing that stuff, but I think eventually I'll get the chance to make a movie.
That's
and help
awesome.
with that. Yeah.
I bet you will.
Yeah. That's a big, what do you call it? The big hairy goal.
The big hairy goal.
Yeah. There's like an acronym for it. That's pretty funny, but yeah.
The BHG.
Yeah. BHG. Big hairy goal.
It's not a bad goal.
Yeah. I think it's cool. I think it's doable.
Yeah. It's totally doable.
Yeah. And I think it seems like something like, oh, that's so far away. But sometimes you get out of your little bubble. And like when I go back home, and I talk to people about what they do, or I see some other things, and then I'm like, oh, you should do it like this, blah, blah, blah. And then I realize like, oh no, I have the skills to do that. It's not something that's, outside of me.
Creative
doing.
problem solving. I think that's
Yeah.
what producers are.
Yeah, exactly.
They are creative problem
To
solvers.
figure out how to do the thing for the vision within the budget,
Yeah.
within the rules.
That's right. It's so fun. I mean, I'm not a producer. Well, I guess I sort of am, but
I think you are.
it is a fun challenge to go, how do you figure out this problem? How do you fix this problem?
Right.
Creatively and like strategically.
Yeah.
And I love figuring out problems. It's one of
For
my
sure.
favorite things I do with Bert when he has a project. I'm the problem finder. I'm
Yeah.
the Debbie Downer. I'm the
Yeah,
one
but you're
that-
also the solver and like the person that kind of puts those things together. It's like,
I am the solver. Not always, but sometimes I'll go, there's a problem here. I can't figure it out, but here's the problem.
right.
So if you fix this problem, then it fixes a bigger picture. And Bert almost always can figure out the solution if I can't.
It's really cool watching you guys work together in that way.
Huh.
I've always wondered how you handle him talking about family life so much as his like career.
You know what's funny is I have a couple of rules.
Mm-hmm.
He can't make me look like a real asshole. He
Sure.
can't make it look like I'm that he doesn't love me.
Yep.
Right? So he can call me a bitch, which he has. He loves my conto joke. But in the joke, you can tell that he loves me.
For sure. Yeah. He has a way of delivering things that you're like, I can't believe you just said that. And also that's hilarious.
And you clearly
And it's
adore your
endearing.
wife.
Yeah.
So one thing I know for sure, even when he's in his hullabaloos and he's in his like, kind of like super self-focused mode,
Mm-hmm.
I have never, ever doubted that he doesn't love me with every single fiber of his
Absolutely.
being. I mean, never doubted it. So
And wants your buy-in on everything.
on his breath,
Yeah, 100%.
everything.
Let me tell Leanne. I gotta ask Leanne. Has anybody seen Leanne? Where's
You know,
Leanne?
I sometimes think to myself, why did I put myself in this position? Right? What the hell was I thinking? But I know why. Because I never felt, I always felt expendable. And I am not expendable in his life.
Right.
And I think I recognized that really early on in our relationship, that I was necessary
Yeah.
for him.
Yeah.
Which could be kind of unhealthy.
Sure.
Sometimes it is unhealthy.
Sure.
But I think the part of me that's broken needed to feel absolutely necessary for somebody.
Yep.
So again, with the double-edged sword,
Right.
it's awesome because I never ever doubt our relationship.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, could you just let me breathe?
Right.
Just
Give me a second.
make a decision without me, dude.
Right.
And he doesn't even want my input most of the time, but he wants my input.
Yeah.
He wants me to agree with him.
He wants your approval.
Yes, he
Yeah.
does. And sometimes that's flattering and sometimes it's exhausting.
Right.
So I don't know. I think we have a fairly complicated relationship.
But you guys make it work in a smooth way.
That's all me.
Yeah.
I mean, really, no,
Yeah.
it's not all me. That's not fair. Bert has perspectives I could never have.
Sure.
So I am really grateful for them. And most of the time I am just really impressed by him.
Sure.
But about the jokes, they have to be funny.
Yeah.
They have to somehow let the audience know he really loves me.
Sure.
It's not a hateful joke.
Yeah. It never is.
No, it never is. And nobody knows if it's true or not.
Yeah, that's the other thing where you're like, did that happen? Or did he write a bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no one knows except for me and him or anybody else that might have been present
sure.
for what he's talking about.
For sure.
And so I don't really care.
Yeah.
I think the girls mind
Sure.
now that they're older.
Yeah.
And I don't think we as parents did the best job there. I think that Bert and I have the same perspective in that we all put our pants on the same way.
Yep.
Our kids have distinctions and our kids have normalcies that so many people can relate to.
Yep.
And those distinctions, when you put them out there, it's very healing for other people who have kids with similar distinctions.
Yeah, and they become less important.
Yes. They
common.
less powerful.
Yeah.
And if you can laugh about that, he has a joke about me farting on his chin in sex,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's one that's true.
Right.
And I was mortified. And we'd been married forever. And when you have a kid, sometimes you can't control that.
Sure.
And I was crying. I was so embarrassed.
And he was like, I'm going to tell everyone about
He did.
this.
As I'm crying, I'm like, you're going to write a joke about this, aren't you? I know you're going to write a joke about this. I was so upset by that one moment in time.
Yeah.
And then after the moment passed, I went, I cannot be the only person post childbirth that's farted in their husband's
Everybody's
face.
probably experienced that.
And so why can't we just laugh about it?
Yeah.
Because sex is what's supposed to happen in a marriage.
Right.
And no, it doesn't look like a porn.
Right.
It looks like freaking people stumbling and falling half the time. It's not sexy. Both he and I do not have bikini bodies.
You're right.
And so why would I withhold that from the world?
Sure.
I don't find that.
And that's a breath of fresh air. Like, thank God you don't.
Well, I mean, the thing is, people don't know what happened in the intimate moments that are really special.
Yeah.
That moment sucked.
Right.
And so how many people have had a moment that sucked in sex?
Yeah.
I mean, so we'll talk about it. And I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. And maybe somehow that's wrong, but I don't really care.
No, I think it's like incredibly refreshing. There's just like something so genuine about you guys that, I mean, it is genuine and you can feel that. And so it's like nice. It also makes, I think that's why people connect so much to Bert and his comedy, is that it's real.
It is mostly real.
It's real storytelling.
It is mostly real. And there's a poem, or maybe it's a speech that Nelson Mandela gave, or Marianne Williamson. I don't know who got it from who, where it says that, shrinking who you are doesn't serve the world.
Yeah.
Who you are is what serves the world. And when I found that quote, I went, okay, I'm never going to not be myself again.
Yeah.
I'm going to have no apologies for who I am, including the cursing, including the not wearing makeup, including the I have fat back. I'm sorry, my back is fat. I'm not willing to eat nothing to have no fat on my back. But so I'm just not going to worry about that anymore. And then that gives other people permission to do the same.
Yeah, it's really refreshing.
To just be a good person and to be what your goal is. Can I be a good person? And apply that simple statement to your marriage, to your parenting, to your coworkers, to your job, to yourself. See how I just gulped when I said to yourself? Because I can't say
not fully there.
Self. To your friends.
Yeah, but look at this incredible life that you've built because of that too, which is really, it's a testament to that.
It's super
because
simple.
Everyone in your life is genuine. Everyone around you, your home, everything is just, like I said, it's like a warm hug when you walk in here.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
It's true.
That's always.
It's hard to set that stage too. Like, it's legit.
Well, the goal, since I figured out how very unhappy I was at a young age, my goal has always been just to live happy.
Yeah.
And let that be whatever the universe decided it was. Not I want to be rich, not I want to be famous, not I want to be skinny. I want to be happy.
Yeah.
And you tell me what that is.
Right.
But my intention every day when I wake up is to be happy.
Yeah.
And obviously you don't always fulfill it. Some
Right.
days I'm frustrated. Some days I'm tired. Some days.
Well, it's part of it. You have to have balance.
But the goal is just to be happy. And happy is a gift to everybody in your life.
For sure.
Yeah. And it's not that hard.
I think it's a practice.
It is.
And when you realize that and you start practicing it, just the way you greet people or the way that you host people or whatever, that's fulfilling as well, because then people give that back to you.
Absolutely. Smiling.
Yeah.
Simplest thing in the world, to just smile at everybody.
Say hi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Make friends.
Somebody came to visit me once and we went to Target, and I do this to everybody. I'm at the cash register. How are you doing today?
Yeah, totally.
How's your day? Oh, I'm sorry to hear about that. Well, I hope your dog gets better.
Right. Totally.
Have a nice day.
And then you'll know them next week. Like, hey, Fred. What's
Exactly.
up?
How's
Yeah.
your dog?
100%.
And what does it cost you to do that? To look at the person who's standing across from you and really see them
Right.
and ask them, how are you? And want the answer.
Yeah.
It takes no more time than standing there doing nothing.
Absolutely.
No more time.
And it always comes back to you tenfold.
100%.
People will then remember you. Leanne,
Yes.
welcome.
Well,
you
not
know?
even that. I walk out of the store feeling like I've cared for somebody.
Yeah.
And caring for somebody it fills you up.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
It gives you energy.
Absolutely.
It seems depleting in like theory, but it's really not. To just
It's
stand there silently and let the guy scan your stuff, or to just say, how you doing?
Yep.
Oh, you're at CSUN? What are you studying?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. You're going to
Totally.
be great at that. Have a
Totally.
great day. You
Totally.
know, never see the guy again.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed that moment.
Yeah.
That moment was enjoyable for me. Maybe not everybody feels that way, but I do. But yeah.
No, I think it's a life lesson that you learn. And I see that I think it's a Gabby Bernstein book. And I really like reading her stuff, but sometimes I'm like, oh man, she's like the most privileged white woman. I love you, Gabby. But some of her examples of like, you know, it's all about like meditation and finding happiness in yourself and then projecting that into the world. Some of her examples are like, when my first class ticket at the airport got canceled to like regular class or whatever. And I was so upset, you know, and you're like,
so unrelatable.
oh my God.
Yeah.
But the lesson there is that you could go up and blow up at the person behind the counter who had nothing to do with your canceled flight or
Exactly.
first class ticket or whatever.
Yeah.
You could go up and be nice to them too and be caring. And even if you don't get what you want out of the situation, at least you had a nice conversation with someone. If you go up and scream at someone, that's just poisoning yourself and
Right.
you walk away feeling horrible no matter what, even if you get what you want.
Yeah.
Then you're like apologizing to the person. Oh, I wish shouldn't have blown up like that or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Or apologizing to yourself for being an asshole.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're disappointed in yourself. And it breeds shame. And who wants that?
100%.
No, the shame is useless.
Nope.
It's useless. It does nothing but hold you down.
Absolutely.
And so why would you behave in a way that caused you to feel shame? That's just super self-destructive.
For sure. I have a question for you that I've always wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
When you moved to LA, was that with Bert for Bert's career, or did you
No.
moved here for another reason?
No.
What brought you here?
I didn't know Bert until I met Bert when I was 31, almost
Okay.
32. And I moved here when I was 27.
Okay.
I moved here from New York. I lived there 4 years. And then I was studying to be an actor
Okay.
in New York.
Yep.
I'm a Meisner trained actor.
Really?
I
That's
am.
amazing.
And when I was in New York, I had a hard time working because of my accent.
Yep.
And so I just started writing like one acts.
Yep.
And then I had a couple other friends who wrote one acts, and we just put like a night of one acts together.
Cool.
And I was like, hey, this writing thing's pretty cool. So I had grown weary of living in New York.
Mhm.
Um,
I understand that.
it's hard to live there,
Yep, I live
especially
there.
being from rural Georgia.
Yeah.
And I always lived next to Central Park so I could get into Green.
Yep. Me too. I lived at 106 in Amsterdam just so I could walk to that little
Yeah, I was
spot.
80th in Amsterdam.
Oh, yeah.
I was, same side of the street,
Yep.
side of the park. But at a certain point, I was like, I'm suffocating. Like I need to,
Yeah.
I'm suffocating.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to move to LA. I kept my apartment just in case I hated it. And I never found my people in New York.
Yeah.
I just never found, I had a couple friends, but I didn't get, it wasn't right.
I felt like that too. The lifestyle wasn't right necessarily. I love it.
No.
It's fun.
Yes.
But it's not me.
It wasn't me either. It
Mm-hmm.
just didn't fit. And I always felt really dumb there. I
Right.
felt like everybody else was so much smarter.
There's
than
an
me.
attitude. Yeah.
Yeah. And I grew up in a rural high school. I didn't read like, Bronte
Right.
growing
Right,
up and
right.
they're having, this Bronte, that Bronte. And I'm like, what's a
What
Bronte?
are you talking about? Yeah.
Is that like a pretzel? I don't understand what that is. So I just felt really stupid.
Yeah.
So I moved here and I was still acting. I still acted a little bit. I kind of hooked up with a director and she put me in several of her projects, little bitty small roles, nothing to really speak about. I did a few plays. I wrote some shorts that I produced and acted in. And then I started writing screenplays with a partner and just ditched acting altogether.
Cool.
But I had been here for a while. He had just graduated college when I moved to LA.
I was gonna say because he lived in New York for a while too.
Yeah, he did. He moved to New York. Like I left in April. He moved in like June
You
or something.
rented your apartment. It was
basically. It's crazy.
Sublet to him and then.
But yeah, we met here. We met bowling.
Okay.
I thought I'd told you this
I think
story.
I know about the bowling, but
I met bowling.
I remember him telling a story about New York and then you talking about New York and I was like, oh, did they meet in New York and then move out here?
We met here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we met here, and I definitely was not going to fall in love with a comedian. No way. But now
wasn't
that I
in your
look,
life plan.
No, I absolutely said to my friend, I will not be in love with this guy. I will not because he's a comedian. No.
Yeah.
And then the kind of writing was on the wall that he might be a good fit. But now that I think about how I grew up, it's kind of not super shocking because
Yeah, you could be a comedian.
I don't know if I could be a comedian, but my dad watched only comedy. Like we bonded over Saturday Night Live. I watched the first episode of Saturday Night Live and every episode after that when I was with my dad.
Yeah.
There was another show that came on Friday nights called Fridays that Kramer from Seinfeld was on and Larry David was on.
Oh, wow.
Super funny.
What was it called?
It was called Fridays. It was a sketch comedy show like Saturday Night Live, but it was on Friday nights.
Okay.
And it was ridiculously funny. My dad loved Gallagher.
Yeah.
Like
My
the
dad
comedian
loved Gallagher too. Yeah.
loved Gallagher.
Yeah.
I've seen every Gallagher show.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
And he loved George Carlin.
Yep. Same.
And
Gallagher is the watermelon guy, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he's actually a really good comedian.
Yeah,
he just
it's
has
hilarious.
this shtick where he busts a watermelon at the end of his act. But if you watch his act, it's actually
funny.
pretty well written.
Yeah.
And then he only watched like really good comedy. He only watched MASH, All in the Family,
Yep.
like really well written shows of Sanford and Son.
Yeah.
And that's all I saw is comedy. He was a huge Mel Brooks fan. When you could buy before VCRs, you could buy this laser disc, which was this huge thing that was shaped like an album.
Oh, wow.
But you put the album in the machine and
Like a
then you
giant
push a
floppy
lever
disk?
and you pull the sleeve out and it leaves the disc in there.
Wow.
And then you could watch like
lot
a
of room
movie.
for error in that situation.
It was dicey at best. But he bought all these Mel Brooks movies.
Yeah.
And I mean, looking back, I'm thinking, hey, I was only 10. And
I was watching all these.
that's really not super appropriate. But
Yeah.
I watched History of the World Part 1, Blazing Saddles. What else did I watch of Mel Brooks? Over and over and over. Because I had this laser disc.
Yeah.
Right? So I just watched these comedies over and over. So now that I look back, I go, well, it's not super surprising because I was in male comedy,
Yep.
not female. There was not really that
There
much.
wasn't a lot of female
there was
comedy.
Gilda Radner and Carol Burnett, which I loved.
Yep.
But what I was watching with my dad was all super male driven.
Sure.
So, and I grew up and married this male meathead-ish, meathead adjacent
Sure.
comic. And I go, well, no, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I completely understand his joke writing.
Yeah.
And I don't
absolutely.
take offense to it.
Yeah,
ever.
you understood him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I got lucky.
Interesting.
I got really lucky with him.
Yep.
And you know, he's hard to wear every day.
Sure.
But and he casts a really big wake.
Yeah, I was gonna say any big personality.
Yeah.
That's a challenge.
So
Yeah.
the cool thing is that he travels. And so I get a little breathing room because
Sure.
I'm a pretty big personality too.
Yeah.
But I don't get a lot of space when he's here because he takes up a lot of space.
Sure.
And that's okay. I just have to find ways to have my own space.
Yeah, and that's probably also like your y'all's friend group is also like a good
Yes.
part of that as well.
Yes.
Yeah. But moving and not having that space is a lot that you've taken on this last year.
Moving has been, I'm tired.
Yeah, this construction project.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I'm
It's
really
impressive.
tired. I'm tired of doing work over and over again.
Yeah.
Same work over and over again.
Sure.
That makes me exhausted.
Sure.
And then you don't move forward. And
Yeah.
that makes me exhausted.
Yeah, it's like you're stuck in the hamster wheel.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
a little bit in the hamster wheel in the house right now.
But even though you probably can't see it because you're constantly in it, every day I come back every week, it's a little bit further along.
I know.
Yeah.
It is.
It's good.
I get it. It's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back.
Yeah.
4 steps forward, 1 step back. It's like that. It's been like
Close.
that lately.
It's close.
I sometimes can't believe what all I do.
It's impressive.
I do a lot.
Because just managing your family is one thing, like managing a lot of like birth stuff. I mean, he's got so many things going on.
He does.
And then also taking on these huge projects.
Yes, he has a lot going on. I need the house to be done.
Yeah.
I need to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So I can move on to these other things and have a little bit of space.
Yeah.
I've been trying to have rosé in my backyard with anybody
Some
for
Leanne
weeks.
time.
And I'm like, can you do it at 10 p.m.? Because that's when I can do it.
Could you come back at 7:45 a.m. tomorrow and then
Right.
be gone by 9? Thanks.
Okay, 10 p.m. I got 15 minutes. Go. Let's drink that glass. How about you? Are your friends here? I don't know much about your
so I've
friends
got-
except Antonia.
I've got a really good group of adult friends, and I feel like, you know, COVID has been such a like time of reflection for everybody, I think. And for me, like the timing of it in my life and like all the things and just having all of it stop, right? Like I had my goal for 2020 was to take 2 companies to 2.5 million in sales.
Jeez.
And I was on the track. Like we were crushing. First quarter was like, let's go. Bring it on. I had like basically worked myself into a live work apartment that I would sometimes go like 4 days without leaving.
Oh my God.
I knew when I was trying to go like really insane that I had to like get out of the apartment and see some friends, but I had kind of isolated myself from my friend group. And I had experienced that one other time in my life where I was on the road a lot, traveling with arguably like one of the biggest like superstars of our time.
Yeah.
And essentially such a high level of like, you know, secrecy in that, obviously, to like you never want to let on where you are. Things can get really weird for you and your team if people start knowing who you're traveling with and what you're doing. So my parents would know where I was. And like sometimes like some of my friends would know like what part of the world I was in just from a safety perspective. But I became so secretive and closed off and got very used to that to where I would get back and I'd be back for like sometimes only like a couple days. I remember one time being back for like 30 days and being like, I have 30 days to hang out with my friends. And then I wouldn't get invited to anything because people had been so sick of like inviting me. And then I'd be like, sorry, I can't, I'm not there. Sorry, I can't, I'm not there. Sorry, I can't. So I had tried to work out of that by deciding not to go on the road. But then I had just out of my nature worked myself into that same scenario where I have friends, but like, and I had teammates from the days of CrossFit and things like that. But it would only be when I reached out to them and I would just be so focused on work. And all of my friends, like really close friends right now, also were in the same boat. So none of us took offense to that. Like Antonia has 3 restaurants in LA and like multiple TV shows and like her life is only getting bigger. And my friend Deb was like running basically like international PR for Tao Group and just like these huge jobs and women in these huge jobs. And so we all understood that if it works out to see each other, cool. But for the most part, we didn't. And then COVID happened.
Right.
And I remember being in my apartment, like scared to go outside for a little bit. Like this is going to be 2 weeks and then we'll like be back out there. And at some point it got past 2 weeks and I was like, I've been in my apartment for a month and I need to have human connection. Oh my God, I've watched everything on Netflix. Tiger King's over. What am I going to do with my life? And of course I was working on like trying to save the companies. And during that time it was like filling out all these forms online to get grants and stuff to like save everything and whatever. And my friend Antonia said, hey, we're working out every morning at 9 a.m., no excuses. None of us have any excuses right now, so we're just doing it. And our friend Ben is going to lead the programming. And we have snuck some equipment from the owner of the gym's approval into our backyard. So come over. We're staying, at the time we were like, we're staying 6 feet away from each other. I remember we had these like shoelaces that were 6 feet, so you had to stay in your zone in my friend Antonia's yard. And we just made this commitment to doing that. And it became, we called ourselves the Spillers because every day someone would spill their coffee on us secretly. Like, and so it just became like the Spillers Inc. And then that became this like quarantine group, right? Like everyone kind of found their group. We started doing slam poetry nights for one of our friends' birthdays. Was like, I want everyone to say a poem. And we were like, are you kidding us? Like, oh my God, this is so lame. And it was so much fun. Everyone either wrote it, like everyone's interpretation of that was so incredible. Like some people wrote poems. Some people did, like one girl got up and did like Fight for Your Right to Party by the Beastie Boys, but in like slam poetry voice. And like, we just had so much fun. And Antonia was like trying to save her restaurant. So we were all going with her and like packaging up food to take to hospitals and like being part of that program. And we just became this unit.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time that I had experienced community at that level as an adult, but outside of like competing on a team for CrossFit or something like that, where you're like literally in the trenches with each other every day, like 4 times a day, working out and sweating. Now we were working out, we were cooking together. We were also pulling resources, like going back to like the farming days, like, you know, at one point the grocery stores like started running out of stuff. So Antonia is like, okay, I got a butcher, my purveyor that's like having, and all of her connections were having a hard time because the restaurants were having a hard time. So we were then like, I was working or volunteering for a farm box company, giving out farm boxes to like underprivileged people. They would pay me with a farm box, which there's no way I could consume all those vegetables by the time they'd go back. So I'd take them back to Antonia's. We'd divide those up. Antonia would get our meat orders for the week and go to her like meat purveyor, butcher guy. And we'd have like all this stuff. And then she'd teach us how to cook it because all of us would be like, I have no idea what to do with this. And it just became this community effort of taking care of each other. And our one friend Deb was like basically for the first 3 months like didn't leave her house, so we would like drop off food to her and you know, make sure we took a rower to her house at one point to make sure she was like working out. And that was amazing. And so then coming out of COVID, and even when I moved back to Santa Fe, they all drove out with me. Like one of them drove out with me and then they all came out and we like hung out in Santa Fe for a while. And coming back to LA, I moved into Antonia's spare room, which was going to be 12 weeks and has now been like 8 months. And we're like, she's 45, I'm 38. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, are we doing our Golden Girls lifestyle right now? But it's so much fun. And yeah, it's just been a real treat to have these adult friendships like flourish in this way. And now I can't even imagine my life without them.
That's so great.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And I think we've all come together. Like I've noticed it, not in my wildest dreams would I have asked to stay at somebody's house pre-COVID. Too proud. I've got my beautiful live work loft. I've got, you know, incredible HD Buttercup furniture. Like this is my thing. And not that I haven't done that before, living out of a suitcase on the road in the film industry. Turns out I function really well that way. But like I've been at Antonia's house at one point. Someone in that household got COVID and I moved to my other friend's house. And then our other friend went out of town and she needed her garden like watched and watered. So I've been staying at all our friends' houses for like, you know, 1 month here, 3 weeks there, whatever. And we've just become this little community of friends helping each other out, which is like, I wouldn't even have dreamed of that before.
Right.
Like, nor would they probably have been like, yeah, please come stay at my house for a month.
Right.
And so it's just interesting how the perspective shift has happened.
Right. So it was a big gift in some ways.
Oh yeah,
COVID
I think it's been the biggest gift. And like, I'm grateful that it happened at this time in my life. You know, I think it's probably harder for like kids or people that are older, but like being able to pivot, it's been a huge gift. And I remember, you know, there are times when I was in that like highly isolated work environment that I had created that I said, like, I wish I could just take a step back from this for a little while. I wish that I could, you know, put this apartment on pause. I love it, but I wish I could like put it on pause for a little bit and like go back to New Mexico and like be in the wilderness for a little bit. I got all of the things I wished for. It wasn't exactly how I planned on it, but it's a huge blessing. And it taught me lessons. And I think it like bonded our friend group in a way that wouldn't have happened had this like crazy trauma bond not, you know, taken place.
Right.
And now it's like kind of magical.
That's awesome.
It's a different
It's
LA
your
experience.
campers.
It really is a camper experience. Yeah.
It's your campers.
Yeah, 100%.
Don't we all deserve that?
Yeah. And I don't think you think about it, or at least I know, I mean, my parents have it in a little way, but I feel like they didn't have that as much growing up. So I didn't have that example. They have their core group of friends, but they didn't like really make the effort to hang out as adults as much because they were busy. They were, you know, two working parents, and my sister is disabled, and like they were focused on us and that stuff. But it's
Right.
like it's really nice to have that.
Yeah.
And I've always joked about like I want to live like the Golden Girls someday. So I'm getting to live that out right now,
That's so funny.
which is really cool.
So we can edit this out. Will you talk about your relationship with Tate?
Yeah, I can talk about it. So Tate and I have dated on and off for almost 12 years. I was just thinking about the other day. I always said like a decade. I'm like, oh, and then these last few years went by. And it's been like
It's been 12.
13 years.
That's a long time.
It's a really long time. We met, like I interviewed him on the radio when I lived in Santa Fe for a little while and was working at a chamber of commerce in another hat of my life.
Oh my God.
And he was starting his gym and trying to be a professional gym owner. And I had a show that I would co-host. And then when my boss would go out of town, I would host called Business Matters on like the local radio station. And we would interview businesses. And
That's so funny.
how Tate and I met. Yeah. And then I did the first CrossFit workout at his gym and I was like trying to impress him. And I took my friend Blake with me and I was like, we got to do good. This guy's like really hot. And like, I just interviewed him and like, there's so much chemistry. And then, it was horrible and I couldn't drive my car home afterwards. And I like couldn't tell him that.
You had little T-Rex arms.
I was literally like ducked down and they were, like, coming out of the gym. Her and I were like hiding in our car.
That's funny.
So, and Tate and I just hit it off. Like we both wanted to have a life. Like we both had this Santa Fe life. He didn't grow up there. He grew up in Michigan, but his mom lived there and he had gone to school there and like loved the life, but also had this desire to come to LA and like, you know, not be a star, but like, you know, be
Work.
in the industry and the entertainment business. And he'd been around it. He was really good friends with Joe Rogan and trained with him, which is how pre Fear Factor, they like him, Eddie Bravo and Tate like rolled jujitsu together. And when Joe got Fear Factor, he needed to take a bodyguard on the road with him. He was like, hey, you want to come with me? And Tate was training for the UFC at the time. So it was like a perfect thing. And so that's how that relationship happened. And then, Tate always had this like taste of like coming out and he got to see that, I think, in that world. And so we hit it off like 6 months before, maybe it was like 3 months. It was even less time before I decided that I was like moving out here. And right after we had been hanging out a little bit and dating a little bit, he was like, I'm going to LA for this jujitsu tournament with my kids that he was training. If you want to come. And I was like, there's 3 award shows that I used to be a part of like in a PA, like I was a PA in New York for them and they're in LA. And I have been hit up by the guy saying like, hey, if you wanted to work, if you could make it out here, I could give you a job for this, like this weekend, 3 award shows in a row. So I said, great. I hitched a ride with them. We drove at like 5 p.m. I think we had plans on leaving at 10 a.m. I was ready at 10 a.m. Tate was ready at 4 p.m., which is the story of our relationship.
Oh my God.
And I was extremely pissed, but like trying to be cool because I was like, I like this guy, but I don't want to be like, it's their trip. So I'm not trying to like impose my like schedule, but I was like ready to go.
Yeah.
So at 4 p.m. we left and we drove all night and got into LA. I think I took a shower. We were staying at one of his friend's apartments. All of us, like 10 of us.
Oh
like,
my God.
Down to like a 15-year-old kid that was doing his first jiu-jitsu tournament. So we're like in this apartment. My friend Ariana lived out here and she picked me up and like drove me to my first day at work. And I think it was like the MTV Movie Awards or something like that. So I was at Universal all day. I did 3 back-to-back shows. They did the tournament. And then I was just like, I feel the need to try to like change, like get a new job. I had originally intended on going back to Santa Fe for just a short time after the economic crash. And LA seemed like a cool place. So I emailed a couple places on like Friday afternoon. We went through the weekend. I got an interview on Monday morning. I went in for the interview as we were driving out of town. I remember being so sick. Like I had a sore throat. Like I just, worked myself to the bone. And on the way back home, I got the job acceptance and they're like, if you could be here in 2 weeks. So I went back, sold my car, moved out of my apartment, moved to LA, bought a new car. And so that began the beginning of like mine and Tate's long distance relationship, which has been, he's on films, I'm on films, we're all over the place. But we make it work in the same way, which is very challenging. And there's parts of that, especially like after COVID, where I'm like, I don't know, we got to figure like some things out here. We can't just do this forever.
Right.
But it's really fun and exciting, and we've been very supportive of each other, and we've been able to like start and grow businesses together. When we come together, it's just like magic. We can do anything. And it's been a wild roller coaster ride. And when people listen to our story, they're just like, whoa, I don't think I could handle that. But it's also like something that we both feel very comfortable in.
Right. Handle what? Like the travel?
Just like being apart all the time. And, there's levels to it that are like, okay, well, you're long distance, whether you want to be or not, because it's like if you both prioritize work, right, which we have, and it's all over the place. And lately he's been getting more work in New Mexico because there's so many films going there. And I literally traveled for 5 or 7 years of that relationship were me on the road.
Right.
There was 1 year where I paid rent on an apartment for an entire year that I saw 30 days total.
Oh my God.
And I was international. So it's like, that's extremely challenging.
Yeah.
But we both get each other in that way. And I think it's hard to come back together sometimes in that. There's definitely challenges, and there's definitely during COVID, like figuring out like, he got injured as well. Like right before that, he had a really bad concussion on a job. So we had to figure out how to, make the business still go, like consolidate some of his stuff so that he wasn't living in 2 different places and juggle that. And that was very challenging, but we survived all of that.
Right.
And we've made it through all of these huge challenges with so much love, and, on to the next challenge, I guess, is like figuring out how to make that a more like less long distance and a more stable situation.
Right.
But it's worked out well. And if I don't get in my head too much about it, then we're totally fine.
Why would you get in your head about it?
Well, it's challenging to be alone sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, so there are days where I'm like, this would be so much easier if there were 2 of us,
girlfriend.
Exactly. And you know that because it's
choir.
like, you can't, he's the same, not the same as Bert, but like the personality level is the same. Right. And there's a lot, he has so much going on, and it's easy to get like caught up in the whirlwind of that thing. And then also I have so much going on,
right,
that it's like, sometimes those tornadoes don't always like stop at the same point.
Right.
So those are huge challenges.
Yeah.
And it's like really inspiring for me to see you guys, and actually to see everyone in your campers group, like Tom and Sandy make that work really well, where it's like, and there's I've been around a couple other couples in the industry that have that same challenge where they're maybe not together all the time, or it's like on and off. And how do you create that space for the relationship and keep it healthy within that, which is challenging.
It is challenging. I have to tell you though, you have the personality type for it, like I do, like Sandy does.
Yeah.
We are super independent, self-contained people.
Sure.
So most of my happiness comes from me.
Yeah. And that's the real key, right? Like
That
if I
is the
get in my
key.
head
Yeah.
worrying about like what he's not doing or what he's not providing, then that's challenging.
Right. And the hard part about it is, I think a lot of women have this challenge, is it's okay to say, hey, I know this isn't on your radar, but I need this.
Right.
Because
that's a challenge for me.
it is a challenge for me too. But it is one of those things where I go, Bert actually wants this information.
Yep.
But I spend my days so independent,
Right.
and so without need,
Right.
that he doesn't know where to find the need.
Right.
So what am I supposed to do? Expect him to read my mind? Because I spend 99% of the day not needing anything from
Well, and
another person.
Sometimes if I don't want that, I'll push it away. So then I like recognize where I've created that, where I'm like, leave me alone in this situation because I need to do it because I know exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, why aren't you helping me?
Yes.
It's like,
And then you go, well,
you just yelled at me to not help you.
you're giving mixed messages. It's
Yeah.
really hard to like ask for what you need and not take it personally that they just don't know.
Sure.
because you asked for so little.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I feel like I asked for so little.
Yeah, I set the bar so low on this.
Exactly. But his perspective is valid. You've set the bar so low, I don't see anything.
Right.
So it's not like you're all day long going, hey, I need.
right,
So I
right.
start looking and anticipating for where you need.
For sure.
That's not what we've set up. What we have set up, me
Yep.
too. I have set it up where I am super low maintenance
Yeah.
because I want him to take care of his business.
Yeah.
And that is fulfilling for me.
Sure.
And so I can't completely blame him
Right.
for neglect
Sure.
because I've set the pattern up to be neglected.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to be supportive, which I also like. I get enjoyment out of being supportive
Totally.
in those roles, in those things, and helping
Yeah.
set up whatever that thing is
Yeah.
and do it. Yeah. And oftentimes I find that I don't even know what I want to like ask for.
Same.
Like so-
Same. I'll be in the middle of doing something. He'll go, why don't you just ask me? And I'll go, because it didn't occur to me.
Yeah, I didn't realize that
I didn't know I
that.
needed it.
Totally. Yeah, I have a therapist that's like helping me figure that out a little bit right now.
That's good
Like,
because
if you don't know what you need and what you want or what the things are that like somebody else could do, you may never ask for it because you don't recognize it.
right. And then you start being resentful and you don't
Right.
understand why.
Exactly.
Because you don't understand yourself in that capacity, or at least I'm saying you, I'm talking about myself.
No, but that's very real. And I think part of it too, when people ask like, well, I never had this like maternal instinct that a lot of women have. Like, I have to have kids. I never had that. And
didn't
so
either.
it didn't create a timeline for me.
Uh-huh.
So I don't have that timeline. And a lot of people, I think like that I talk to or that are my friends have a different idea of a timeline. They're like, whoa, like 12 years and you guys have been like doing it like this and like whatever. Like, but I've never had that thing where I was like, I want this, I need this. So it's just been kind of free form.
Uh-huh.
As I get older, I'm like, maybe I need to figure out what it is I want out
Right.
of this,
Right.
so I can create the structure because I
Yeah.
don't know what that is. So if you don't know what that is, then
You're just living in the moment.
yeah, for sure.
And that's wonderful. There's so many people who can't live in the moment. They're
Yeah.
only living in what about this over here?
For sure.
What about this in the future?
Yeah.
It's I was the same way. Kids were not on my brain, not on my radar. I just got gifted them,
Right.
and yeah, I wonder sometimes if where we would still be together, I'm pretty sure, but I don't know what that would look like.
Like, what would the structure be? Because
Yeah.
if that's not in the equation, then it really opens the door for it to be a lot more, not loosey-goosey, but just like less structured. Obviously,
Yeah.
you got to get pretty structured if you bring a kid into the world.
Totally
I'm like,
structured.
it's enough structure if I bring a dog into this world. But it's
Yeah,
like,
right?
Yeah, that is, and we've kind of lived in this thing where we're living, because we're both like starting these businesses, doing this stuff, it's like kind of high risk as well, right? So it's like all the money we're bringing in, we're putting out, we're like
Right.
doing this stuff. And that perspective has changed a little bit during COVID. Me deciding like I want to own a home. He's owned a home before, but it's like now I'm like feeling that need to like have a place to put my boots.
Put some roots
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Well, I know something that Bert and I were very adamant about for a long time that we gotten away from, that is not good, that we are making an effort now to get back into, was once a year we went on a trip
That's important.
by
Yeah.
ourselves
Yep.
without our kids until he got the Travel Channel show. Before that, every year he would take one stand-up gig that was somewhere awesome, like Cabo
Sure.
or Costa Rica or Cancun or somewhere like that. Mom would come out and stay with the kids, and I would go, and we would reconnect. Now, this year it happened in Serbia,
Right.
where I went to Serbia and went, oh yeah,
Remember how
this is
this
why
was?
we have so much fun.
Right.
We have so much fun when we
Yeah.
are outside of the rigmarole of just everyday
Parent
parenting, watering the grass,
Right.
picking up dog shit, you
Right.
know. So I think we stopped doing that for a long period of time. And I think we need to, as our kids are starting to go to college
Yeah.
the next few years,
Find
make
that
a
again.
real conscious effort of doing that maybe twice a year.
Right.
Just so we go, oh yeah, this is
And I
This
can
is who we
definitely see
are.
the importance in that. Just like taking away the work, taking away the other things, because like sometimes I'll get in a thing where okay, I've got you for this weekend. We're going to do all this work.
Right.
And then it's like, that's not fun either.
No.
And that's intense.
No, to just go, you know what, this weekend we're going to rent a hotel at Shutters in Santa Monica and
That's
just
all
be
we're
at the
gonna do.
beach.
Yep.
And we're going to eat room service and we're going to live in our pajamas.
Yep.
And that's what I mean, Bert and I had one vacation right after I had just weaned Isla. And we went to like the desert. And the first night I slept 12 hours and the second night I slept 18. And he was like, well, this sucks. This is not a vacation. And I was like, dude,
I feel great.
I am exhausted. Clearly, I have 2 kids. You've been on the road for years. I just slept through the whole
need to sleep.
vacation. He was like, that totally sucked for me.
Hilarious.
But I mean,
sometimes you need that.
you just need to like, and he cared for me. So he talks about that vacation. So I know he actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Because he made sure that I had food and he really took care of me
Yeah.
because I was so exhausted
Yeah.
from having 2 kids.
And we've done that when I would go on the road, like for big, obviously like huge amounts of time. I would come back. He would make sure that he was in the city, like pick me up at the airport.
Yeah,
One
yeah,
time he forgot. His mom was in town. She had scheduled a trip the same weekend when I was coming back from I can't remember. I must have been gone for like 6 months or something, like a
God.
big deal. And I was so excited. And I got to Tom Bradley and I got out there and like I didn't have any messages yet. My phone was dead. So I was like, so then I got my phone charged and I was like, he fucking forgot the time, didn't he?
Oh,
So then, and I
man.
knew it. And I texted him like, hey, landed. Be right there. And like, Tate's the king of like, be right there. And like, he's like 45 minutes away, but somehow makes it in 15 minutes. Like, I don't know how. And him and his mom like pulled up and I was like, I haven't slept in like 3 days. And like, I'm so jet lagged.
I'm shot.
But every other time, yeah, he's just like, okay, food, water, here you go. Let's take care of it.
Well, the good thing too about Bert is when we get out of our element like that, his focus shifts into our relationship, which is really interesting.
That's
because he's so focused on this. He's not a selfish person. I don't think anybody that knows him would say he's selfish.
Yep.
But he's very self-focused.
Yep.
They're 2 totally different things.
Sure.
He's not saying, screw Leanne, you
Yeah, I
don't
see
get
that.
this.
Yep.
He's just super focused on himself.
Yeah.
But when we go away, he becomes focused on me.
Yep. Okay.
Want to get breakfast? Can I make you some coffee? Let me draw you a bath. None of that happens in this house. None of it.
Yeah. 'cause
It's
he's
all
working.
about what are you actually doing for me?
Right.
And how about you make me coffee? But it allows the opportunity for everything to kind of fall away. And it's a great leveler.
Yeah.
But we haven't done it until I went to Serbia. And he was that way in Serbia. He was a little more self-focused than usual because he was nervous
He was
about
on a movie.
his film.
Yeah.
Yes, but he was still,
Yeah.
what do you want? What can I do for you? How can we have fun today? What can we do?
What about reintegration? Like when he comes back from a trip, do you guys have like a process for that? Or is it just nails on a chalkboard?
We call it reentry.
Yeah.
Sandy calls it reentry.
Yeah.
I
I think I
won't-
heard you use that term the other day and I was like, oh, I understand what that is.
Yeah, totally.
100%.
100%. So reentry is can be multifaceted, and depending on how long he's been gone, that's how long it takes for him to normalize. So if he's been gone 10 days, maybe 1 day to normalize. If he's been gone 4 months, it takes like a week, week and a half.
Yep.
And it's been a long process of discussing what's happening, when it's happening, and not being accusatory or blamey or nasty or victimized by it. Sometimes it goes smoother than others.
Right.
But it takes a great deal of understanding and patience, I think, on the person who has been home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on both sides, but it's like really weird to be in your element and then have this like energy force come in.
It's very disruptive.
And shift that. It's equally as weird. I've been on the other side of it more to come back from a thing where you've built a bubble around yourself and to try to come back into a life that has progressed without you.
Right.
That is weird.
I know that it's very upsetting for Bert.
Yeah.
What you just described
Yeah.
really upsets him.
Yeah.
Like we should have just pushed pause on everything
Right.
until he got back.
Totally.
And it's so unrealistic.
Yeah,
and
it's
I
crazy
can't
to say
deny
that.
how he feels,
Sure.
but I also can't validate it either because I'm never going to just push pause while you're okay, I'm going to sit in this chair for 3 months and I'll be right here when you get back. It just doesn't, I mean, it can't function like that.
No.
So it is really hard. And what happens too when they're on the road, on their own, people are waiting on them hand and foot.
Yeah.
Everyone's doing exactly what they say when they say it. And then he comes home
And
with
they're on a
3
schedule.
women. Yes, they're on a schedule. 3 women who are very opinionated, who are very strong personalities. And he says,
2 have been growing up. So
2
they're
of them are
like,
teenagers who don't want to hang out with their parents.
right.
So when he goes, how about we watch a Guardians of the Galaxy marathon? And his kids go, nah, he's devastated.
Yeah.
Like to the core.
Yeah.
Like this has hurt him so badly.
I saw that in this time. There
And
was
I'm
the day
like-
that Georgia was like lifting heavy and he said she had just missed a lift. When you miss a lift, like you go through all kinds of emotions. And he opened the door and she's like, what are you in here? Like it was like another voice came out of her and I was like, oh no. And he was so hurt about it.
He's so
Yeah.
butthurt about everything like that. And it takes him a minute to go, she has a life too.
Yeah.
Because he's used to everybody focusing on his life.
Yeah.
And even when he comes off the tour bus, I mean, that boy doesn't move. He sits in one chair. Hey, how about you make me a drink? Anybody see my flip flops?
Yeah.
Who's going to do this with me? Who
Right.
wants to play backgammon?
Right.
And I'm like, dude, I got to do the dishes.
I have a whole thing that I've been doing while you were gone.
Yeah. And it continues.
For me, I noticed I couldn't go back. There were times where I would fly back and I would go straight to my parents' house to like see my family.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a huge mistake. I would get like, I don't almost have like out of body experience of and like viscerally like ill. Like I can't be around all this like different energy. So I would literally book a place, a hotel for 2 days
Mm-hmm.
and just be alone.
Mhm.
The same thing when I'd come back to LA if I had a roommate. And that would help me get back into like, okay, I'm not on like the movie schedule. I'm not in like a hyper focus. Like every time my phone goes off, I need to like be somewhere. I'm not on call 24 hours a day. I'm not like putting on the show anymore. And I don't have people like waiting on me, telling me where to go and what to do. Because when you're in those environments, you're told where to go and what to do all the time. You don't have to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get back and you're like, whoa, like what do you do?
Fascinating.
But yeah, that was like my trick was to not see anybody for a couple days if I could,
right.
and then go back into regular life. And then for some reason, I'd always want to go through everything I own and like rearrange it and throw stuff away.
Interesting.
Which I don't know if Bert does that, but
No.
it's like
Bert
you're like, I
throws
wish he
nothing
did
away
that.
ever. I would love that. You know anybody size 8 hat? I could hook them up. Let me tell you. No, I think the challenging part for me is I don't think Bert can hold on to my perspective for very long periods of time. He has moments of going, oh, this must be really hard for Leanne.
Yeah.
And he can hold on to that moment for a little bit and then it slips away
Right.
and it becomes about his experience only.
Right.
And then where I'm not perfect, but I try to look at both experiences. But because my experience is not held very long, I become very protective of mine.
Sure.
So if he would hold on to my experience a little longer, I'd probably be a lot better at holding on to his.
Right.
But I feel like if I let go of mine will disappear entirely.
Totally.
So that's the challenge for
understand
me. And that happens in arguments, that happens especially in reentry.
Yep.
When he's coming back and he's feeling hypersensitive about everything.
Yeah.
I try really hard to stand my ground for myself.
Yeah. Smart.
And I think Sandy is similar.
Yeah.
I can't speak to her experience exactly, but we talk about it quite a bit.
Yeah.
This reentry piece is very real.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, nobody tells you about that when you start. I mean, these lives are obviously like very rare,
Very
right?
specific.
And I think if you're here in the city and in the entertainment industry, a lot of people can relate because
military.
goes through, and military people
Yeah.
for sure, absolutely military, and in a much deeper way for that, with PTSD and like the things that guys go through in the bonding that they have. You know, I can bond with people on the road, but like not like you would in a war situation or a
Right.
military situation. But yeah, it's a very strange process and a strange thing to go through.
It is strange. You have to really put your ego aside.
Yeah.
You really do. And you
Yeah.
have to just filter everything through love and patience as
Sure.
much as you possibly can.
Sure.
And then there's a certain point where you go, you just wore it out.
Okay. And
You just wore it out. Let's
Yeah.
come down out of the sky onto the planet and realize that your daughter is not evil personified. She's just 17. That's it. That's the entire answer. Nothing to do with you at all.
It's not about you at all.
At all. This is 100% that she's 17.
Right.
So can you just let that really get into your body?
Yep.
That's the hard thing too, is that at a
Yep.
certain point I have to just be tough love
Right.
with him. And sometimes I get tired of doing that.
Yeah.
I'm like, figure it out, dude.
Yeah. You don't want to be that person all the time. But it's really, I mean, the way that you operate it, and you're clearly the opposite of codependent, which is important.
I don't know if that's true.
Somebody just recently described codependency to me in a way that I hadn't heard it before, which was that my happiness does not depend on your happiness. And my mood does not depend on your mood. And if
Oh,
you,
well,
like,
that's absolutely
dumb
accurate.
it down to that, then it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting, because you could easily get swept up in it and be like, oh, he's depressed, and now I'm, like catering to it.
No, I
Yeah.
don't do any of that. No.
Yeah.
So I'm not codependent in that way.
Right.
For sure. I've never thought, it's so funny you say that. I've never thought of myself as codependent, but then there's a part of me that goes, well, I kind of have to be, I guess, because we do this dance
You're a partner.
around. I am a partner.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Because that's what I feel like I am.
Yeah.
Is that I want him to be as happy as he possibly can be, unrelated to me.
Yeah.
I want for him to be the happiest person ever.
Yeah.
I think that's what a true partner wants, or friend.
Yeah.
I want for you to be the happiest person
Absolutely.
you could be ever. And if there's
Absolutely.
anything I can do to help you with that,
Yeah.
let me know.
Yeah.
Because if I can, I will. And that applies for everybody I
Yeah.
care for, even the cashier at Target.
Even the cashier at Target that goes to CSUN.
Yeah, exactly. That guy that I made up entirely in my brain.
I was
But
hoping that was a real guy.
no, not a real guy, but I just made him up. But I don't know. Marriage is an interesting thing, especially coming from a place of a history of very unsuccessful marriages.
Mhm.
I feel like I got super lucky in that for the most part, we are a really good team.
Yeah.
And I think that should be the goal, not perfection
Sure.
and not he's my everything.
Sure.
Because that's not possible of any person.
No.
No
In any
person.
situation.
In any situation. I actually read a article somewhere saying the idea of marriage has changed in recent history. That before, marriage had a very specific set of roles
Mhm,
in
mhm.
people's lives.
Mhm.
And their fulfillment came actually mostly from outside the marriage.
Right.
So women would hang out with other women
Right.
and get their fulfillment from their social life there.
Sure.
And we rely on those things from our husband, and financial security entirely from our partner. And this, feeling good about myself from my partner.
Right.
And it's actually a very new idea.
Yeah. And that's a lot to put on someone.
It's a
And
lot
it's
to put on
impossible,
somebody.
actually, to put on
Yes.
somebody. So if we have these expectations of this thing, it's part of that isolation thing too that we do in our like modern American white society of like my house, my family, that's it, nuclear family, and not as communal
Right.
as our actual like human existence has always been.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because you're supposed to get it from other people. Get certain things from other people. I
Yeah.
get a love from my dad I'll never get from Bert.
Sure.
He's my dad.
Yeah.
So should I not seek that out
Right.
because he's not my husband? No.
Right.
And I get so much fulfillment from working out with Sandy.
Yeah.
I mean, so much. We have a blast.
Yeah.
Should I not do that because
Right.
she's not my husband? No, that's
Right.
all ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they're invaluable pieces of my life.
Sure.
So this notion that everything comes from one person is so unhelpful.
Yeah. And super impossible.
Yeah, it's really not
Yeah.
helpful. It's not very helpful.
And that's cool to hear. I mean, you guys have a group of successful relationships around you.
We do. And I know that some people in our group do seek that fulfillment from their other person.
Right.
And it's hard.
Right.
It's not always easy where
Sure.
you go, sometimes somebody might need a break
Right.
because they can't be everything all the time. It's really hard.
You're just trying to be. I think I read something today, a meme or something about, or a quote, I think, on Nietzsche Instagram that said something about, when you realize that other people are individuals outside of you as well. They're not just there to serve you or be a part of your life or make you happy or, any of those things. They're just people just like you. And I think that's something that when you're younger, you don't realize that as a kid. And then you start to realize that more and more as an adult. And whether you really honor that depends on how much you put on other people to do stuff or be for you.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Deep thoughts with Lacey and Leanne.
Thoughts.
Deep thoughts. What else should we talk about, Lacey? Anything else you got on your
God,
mind?
what else can we talk about?
I know, it's a lot.
We talked about prairie life, relationships, businesses.
Caveman coffee, by the way, is awesome.
I feel like we should give out a code. So
Oh,
wife
okay.
of the party, anybody that uses the code wife of the party, 25% off. Let's go.
Awesome.
Get caffeinated, people.
Yes, get caffeinated. I love the mocha.
Yeah.
And I love your...
Thank you.
I'm going to screw it up. Is it your Christmas blend or holiday blend?
Yeah, we do a winter roast every
Winter
year.
roast.
So, and it changes every year. So if you remind me which one you like, it was this last year, I'll make sure that you
That
get
was
that again.
really good.
Yeah.
And I like the one in the black package. Is that
Yep.
black gold?
That's the blacklisted.
Blacklisted.
Yep.
That's good too.
It used to be called Black Diamond, and then we got a cease and desist from someone else that had a Black Diamond something, so it became blacklisted.
Nice, nice. It's all good though.
Yeah,
but
it's
that
all-
winter blend, oh my god, that's
I
my
can't. I think
favorite.
this year was I think this last year was like a Colombian Ethiopian, and it was really beautiful.
It was really beautiful. I'm
Yeah.
a coffee lover too.
Yeah.
Maybe not to the extent that you described, but I do drink coffee.
I used to not like coffee at all. In fact, I used to only like soda. And then when I gave up soda, I had to like reluctantly start drinking coffee. And now I could never look back. It's kind of like when you start drinking fine wines and you learn about grape and like flavor profiles, you start to be like that with coffee too.
Yeah, I would imagine because it is different.
Yeah.
Maxwell
It is.
House does not taste like winter blend.
Yeah, exactly.
They are
well,
not
you
the
could
same.
take one bean and roast it. I think you could roast it 1,000 different ways for 1,000 different
What?
profiles. But
Really?
because, Starbucks, Maxwell Health, they have to buy from all these farms. How do they make it all taste the same? They just overly roast it. They burn it so that it has the same flavor, which they have to do. It's no dig on them. Thank God for Starbucks. They got everyone into drinking coffee. But if you,
I didn't know that.
yeah, it's cool. There's different. You can actually when you watch them roast, they have computer programs now, but you see this bell curve that happens with the bean and it's measuring what they call the different cracks in the roast. So if you'd imagine like a popcorn machine watching the popcorn, it's done when it pops out and it becomes, not a kernel anymore and it's puffed up. Well, the coffee just gets more and more dehydrated and roasted as it goes. So it makes these like different cracks. And
Interesting.
you can measure the moisture level in the roast that in these machines that they use to roast it with. And each roast will have a specific profile of how hot they roasted it, to the time they roasted it, when they cooled it down, how fast they cooled it down, how fast they brought up the heat, all that stuff. And that creates like that final flavor for
Interesting.
each little coffee bean.
Fascinating.
Yeah, the coffee world's amazing. I've learned so much over the course of this education in coffee.
This venture into capitalism.
This capitalistic venture into learning so much about coffee that I didn't even want to know about coffee. Did you know that coffee is the second largest traded commodity to oil?
I
in the
did not
world?
know that. I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
Just about everybody drinks coffee.
everyone drinks coffee. Every culture too. That's what I love about traveling the world and like seeing the different coffee cultures that happen all around coffee. All
Coffee and
little
tea.
Coffee and tea.
I'm surprised tea's not ahead of coffee.
I don't know if tea is traded the same way, if it's a commodity in the same way. So that might just be like a fluke on that. I don't know. I'll have to check that out.
Interesting.
Tea is much bigger of a market in especially
Globally?
I wonder if it is globally. I think it's globally for sure in the US. Like if you just look at the cold case alone at the grocery store, like the tea aisle alone, like the number of teas compared to coffees is so much bigger.
I didn't even think about that. I'm thinking about like the dried tea, the coffee bean. on
Yeah,
the
even
shelf.
if you go in that like section of the grocery store, you'll be shocked at how much more tea there is.
There's a lot of tea.
Yeah. Tea's a lot easier. Tea is a fast grow product. A coffee bean, coffee bush takes 7 years before it starts producing like pickable, roastable coffee. So if you think about how long you have to wait from the time you plant something to get that fruit, that's a lot. Tea's pretty instant.
And that bush continues to produce?
Yeah, and you cut it back for 7 years, and then it continues to produce for a long time.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
as long as it doesn't get like, right now there's a big issue with like rust and other bugs in South America. So there's like
rust.
Yeah, there's like a basically not real rust, but and I don't know like what the difference is between like actual rust on metal and rust on this, but it's called rust, and it's like a parasitic thing that's happening to coffee plants.
Oh no.
Yeah, scary stuff. What will we do without
do
coffee, guys?
I better stock up on some caveman coffee. I'm gonna order 20 bags.
Wife of the party, 25% off.
There you go. Wife of the party.
Yeah.
So cavemancoffee.com/
and just cavemancoffee.com and we'll enter the code wife of the party.
Enter the code wife of the party. Sorry.
It'll be so easy.
Code.
We could probably do a / too.
Well, thank you for talking to me
Thank
today.
you so much. This is so fun.
I have to tell you, I'm so glad I know you.
I'm so glad I know you as well.
I really am.
Aww.
It's a new friendship. Obviously, I've only known you like 8 or 9 months now, 10, something like that.
Yeah.
But people are such gifts.
Right?
You know, it's such a gift to see you every week.
Yay.
It's a gift.
I feel the same way.
I love it when you come in.
I feel the same way.
Well,
Like people come into your life, like sometimes paths cross for a reason, for whatever that reason is. And I feel very strongly that our paths crossed at just the right time for me.
Oh, really? For you?
Yeah.
Why?
I think just like, you know, I mean, the timing of it was like coming back from COVID and all this stuff. And like I said, it just feels like this warm hug. And I was wondering, like, should I come back to LA? Should I do this? You know, what should I be doing? And it was just like a breath of fresh air. Like, this is awesome. I should be here. I should be doing this.
Now, we haven't talked about religion at all. I am not a religious person.
I'm not really a religious person, but I was raised in religion.
Me too, sort of.
I would say I'm spiritual.
Me too.
Yep.
So I believe that's how God talks to you.
I agree. And my friend Deb always says this, and she's just like, God speaks through other people and like other things that are presented in front of you.
That's right.
And I very much believe in the philosophy of, and I'm very trying to lean into this now, of like, go with the momentum, like go with the flow of opportunity of things. If you feel like you're constantly beating your head into something, maybe that's not your right path. And sometimes things can just feel easy and nice.
Yeah.
And you don't have to suffer. And
That's
that's
right.
what this time has felt like for me. So, and you've been a huge part of that.
That's great. Well, thank you. And you know what I think is the universe is telling you it's the time to focus on something else.
Yeah.
Because what happened for you in COVID
100%.
was something that you needed for like nurturing. You needed some nurturing.
I needed to like I was like living essentially like a computer, and I needed to realize that I was more like a plant. And like that was my lesson in COVID.
Yeah, that's really funny. I would say I live more like a machine.
Yeah, there you go.
And I need to live more like a plant.
Yeah, exactly.
Or a puppy.
Oh, I like a puppy better.
A puppy's
like
pretty good.
Mona.
Because puppies are fun. And they're
'Cause
always
puppies
happy.
are happy. Absolutely.
And they'll eat anything.
Yes. They'll eat anything, and they need people, and they need
people.
love, and all
they
those
need
things.
people.
Yeah.
I think maybe you needed some people.
Yeah. I needed to not isolate myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huge lessons coming out of this. And then when you lean into the thing that you need, it's an abundance.
It is
that's
an
how
abundance.
I feel right now.
And you know, the thing about that is sometimes it's very scary because it's foreign, right?
For sure. Like one thing that's interesting that you and Bert kicked off for me, and I've been talking to he's not really a therapist. He's like, I call him my guru because he's like a meditation coach, and I speak to him as my therapist. But words of affirmation, which I do not take compliments or anything very well. I will isolate myself from that. It's not cool. You and Bert FaceTime me sometimes to give me compliments, and then I'm like, thanks. Oh God, I don't know how to handle it. And it has now happened across the board with everyone I've worked with in this last year.
You're kidding.
And it's like people, I'm like, who are you people with all these like this ability to verbalize appreciation. Yeah. And it's just been like slammed down my throat from every direction.
So
And
what do you
having-
think that's about?
I don't know. I'm having to learn how to accept it for one and like listen to it. And if you believe that God is speaking to you in those ways, then it's just like, okay.
So then it has to shift your value somehow at a core level, right? Of how you value yourself or how you're being presented as being of value to others.
100% how I value myself.
Yeah.
And I kind of touched on that earlier in like extreme imposter syndrome. Like, it doesn't matter that I've been doing some of these jobs for 10 years. I still feel maybe I'm not qualified. Maybe I'm not like the right person. Maybe it should be this person. Like whatever. Like all those things that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
Or I tell myself
I tell myself that too.
all the time. But now I recognize it. And then it's like, no, the universe is telling you otherwise. Like these people, Tom wouldn't be hiring me for huge jobs if he felt like that. If I wasn't producing, I wouldn't be coming back. I wouldn't be in people's lives or getting these like extreme feedback loops that are positive if it wasn't true.
That's absolutely right. And I wonder if it has something to do with deserving, being deserving of that life that you've earned.
100%.
Do you deserve this life? I wonder.
Yeah. Well, like owning it and saying yes is a very hard thing.
Yeah.
It's much easier to be like, well, I'll try this for a little while. If it doesn't work out, then that's cool.
Super safe to do that,
It's
isn't it?
super safe to
Yeah.
like go back to my apartment and just stay in there and be behind the computer. I know if I input here, I'll output there.
Yeah.
But there's no true feedback loop there. You know
Right.
what I mean? There's no like loving, nourishing puppy feedback there.
Sure. No risk.
If the dog food bowl is automatic and feeds the dog every day, like the dog could survive.
Yeah. But does it thrive?
Yeah, exactly.
It's about thriving and about
Yeah. And like believing in something that's been like coming up to me a lot and just like writing is just like believing in magic, believing in the magic of life, that it could be really great.
Yes.
And you don't have to get to the, like, I always have that thing of like, once I sell the company, then I can do these things. And it's like COVID taught us that, or taught me that. No, you can't wait to finish. I want to check these things off the list before I do these other life things. It's like, actually, it all happens at the same time.
My husband taught me that lesson. I was a list checker offer too, and I still am for the most part.
Right.
But
You can relax when the house is done.
I can relax the house. But with risk taking, like buying this house and spending the money to remodel this house,
Right.
his philosophy is we have it, we can afford it, make it what we want, and trust that we'll be fine.
Yeah. The universe will provide.
Because, and I had a therapist one time, I was like afraid to do something. This is when I was in New York. And he was like, have you ever not had a roof over your head? Have you ever
Right.
not had food to eat?
Have any of those things ever come true that you're afraid
Right.
of?
Have you
Yeah.
ever not paid your rent?
Right. Exactly.
No. So why are you walking around thinking you will not
Right.
be able to do those things?
Right.
We've never not succeeded in things. Knock on wood. Thank you. But even if something failed, we pivoted and figured it out anyway.
Yeah.
So why would you ever think it would be any different?
100%.
It's hard to trust that though sometimes.
100%.
I think. Anyway.
It is hard to trust that.
Anyway,
But it's
Lacey.
nice to have nice people around you that are like holding you up and
Yes.
pushing you up.
And you deserve it.
Thank you.
And so do I.
So do you.
Yes. So now we are
Absolutely.
good friends.
Now we are good friends. We could go have that rosé.
Now you're Aunt Kesha. You're still Aunt
I'm
Kesha.
please gonna be like, okay, Kesha's here. And
I
the
know,
girls are
right?
gonna be like, what?
I know. Well, because, Bert got to talk to Kesha on the phone. Were you here for that conversation?
No.
Okay. So Whitney Cummings is friends with
Yeah,
Kesha.
yeah.
So Bert was talking to Whitney. Bert was telling Whitney what a big fan of Kesha he is because he
Yeah.
always has been. He
Sure.
thought she's just like
Awesome.
amazing.
Yeah.
So, and he's told the girls this a few years ago.
Yeah.
But it didn't register. I don't think they really knew who Kesha was.
Right.
But they're both like in a Kesha phase right now.
Right.
Of like listening to old Kesha.
Sure.
So he was telling them the story, and both kids were like, wait a
What?
minute, you know Kesha?
Right.
And so That's the big hot person right now.
love
So
it.
you're
That
Aunt
was the
Kesha.
best opening line too. I was like so confused. Like, wait, what?
So you are Kesha at my house.
I'm gonna wear the outfit next time
To work out. We're going to deadlift in this
in
outfit.
this onesie,
Right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for all the gifts you've given to everybody
Oh,
in my
thank you
family.
for including me and trusting me to do that because it's been equally rewarding for me.
It was effortless to include and trust
So
you.
fun.
Of
It's
course.
so fun. It's literally I look forward to Saturdays every week.
So do we.
Yeah. Good.
Everybody in my house is like, can't wait.
Sometimes I'm like, are they sick of this? And then I get your text like, what time? And I'm like, yes,
Not
they're
sick.
ready.
No worries.
Even
Standing
when
Saturday.
it's just you and Sandy, which was hilarious that day.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
We party.
Yeah. You
Sandy
make it
and I
happen.
party.
You make it happen.
Well,
Yeah, so
thank
thank
you.
you for including me.
Well,
It's
thank you for
been
coming.
a blast.
It was fun.